I want to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do, in a world and a job that actually does impact people's lives for the better.
Breaking news is emerging from the heart of the British monarchy this morning, May 28, 2026, as newly surfaced reports regarding the events at Royal Ascot reveal a seismic fracture within the House of Windsor that the palace has desperately tried to contain for 2 years. In the world of ancient dynasties, power is not exercised through open confrontation.
I'm very, very proud. She's been amazing. She's been through so much in the last couple of years, particularly. And she's been looking forward to the Italian trip a lot.
But through the silent geometry of presence, at precisely 14 hours and 03 minutes on that afternoon, a sudden shift in atmospheric pressure occurred within the private enclosure. Prince William, the future king, froze mid-step. A silence descended, lasting exactly 3 seconds, a brief window of time for a spectator, but a terrifying eternity for the courtiers watching his expression darken. To the uninitiated, it was a pause. To the institution, it was a state of cold panic.
I had no idea she spoke Italian either. Did she do that?
I didn't actually.
The prince's gaze was fixed upon the royal box, a space historically treated as the sanctum sanctorum of the direct heirs to the crown. There, seated prominently where only senior working royals and the direct line of succession should be, was the family of Queen Camilla. They had not been placed among the distant aristocrats or the general guest list, but within the inner circle of the monarchy's most sacred public stage. There was no precedent for this. There had been no prior approval from the office of the Prince of Wales.
Before we start, can we just get the formalities out of the way? Because I know it can be a little bit tricky with names and that kind of thing. So just simply Amanda is absolutely fine.
In an instant, the meticulously choreographed display of hierarchy and continuity lay in ruins. Witnesses claimed the immediate reaction from the palace staff was one of frantic, hushed urgency. One senior courtier was reportedly heard whispering to a security official, quote, "Has the seating chart been modified at the last moment? This does not match the morning briefing," end quote. Another palace aide was seen hurrying toward the administrative office with a look of visible distress, allegedly asking through a crackling earpiece, quote,
My title this morning. I was hoping for Dame, but it's not come yet, William. I'll talk to you about that
His
later.
Royal Highness,
His Royal Highness.
Who authorized the Parker Bowles family to occupy the primary tier? We have a protocol breach in progress, end quote. This was the moment the public facade cracked. Inside the royal system, every placement is a declaration of authority, and every chair is a piece of political territory. William interpreted this not as a social oversight, but as an institutional challenge, a deliberate attempt to normalize a new, expanded version of the monarchy that threatens the clarity of the direct line.
It can be. It depends. There's a guitar lesson going on in the morning, a music lesson. You've got to get guitar in the car. No, we're not taking the guitar and we take the bag for school. Are we boarding? No, we're not. Are we seeing friends? No, we're not. So there's all that going on in the morning.
According to internal administrative whispers, the future king's reaction was immediate and chilling. He did not shout. He simply stopped participating in the performance of unity. As we analyze these breaking developments that are reshaping our understanding of the Windsor hierarchy today, please take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing you these deep dive institutional analyses. If you believe the future of the monarchy depends on the preservation of these sacred traditions, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The tension on that afternoon of June 18th, 2024, which is only now being fully understood on this day in May 2026, reportedly spread like a contagion through the enclosure. Princess Catherine, observing the darkening mood of her husband, was seen attempting to maintain a veneer of calm, whispering quietly to him as the security details exchanged rapid, coded messages. An insider close to the security team later remarked that the energy shifted from a social event to a containment operation in less than 60 seconds. The Prince of Wales reportedly looked at his senior aide and said, in a tone described as dangerously quiet, quote, "This is not what was agreed upon. The lines have been moved without my consent," end quote. By 15 hours and 45 minutes, the situation escalated, From a private disagreement to a public statement of defiance, Prince William did something nearly unheard of in the tightly managed calendar of Royal Ascot. He prepared to leave early. There was no dramatic argument in front of the cameras, just a silent, abrupt withdrawal that carried more weight than any official protest. As he turned to depart, one witness heard an official from the Lord Chamberlain's office ask frantically, quote, "Does the prince intend to return for the final procession?" End quote. The answer was a cold, definitive silence. This early departure was the first public signal of a cold civil war brewing behind the palace walls, a struggle between the old guard, who believe in the rigid, disciplined image of the crown, and a new faction attempting to blur the lines of royal legitimacy. The Prince of Wales was drawing a boundary in the grass of Ascot, signalling that he would not allow the symbolic foundations of his future reign to be eroded, while the king faces his ongoing health struggles. The monarchy is an institution that survives on the invisibility of its fractures, but on that afternoon, the fracture became the only thing the world could see. This was not a mistake of the seating office. It was the first skirmish in a battle for the soul of the British crown. Stay with us as we move deeper into the administrative fallout of this unprecedented royal standoff. To understand the magnitude of the tremor that shook the palace today, May 28, 2026, one must look beyond the spectacle of the race and into the cold, calculated philosophy of the royal sanctuary. Why would the mere presence of a few unauthorized guests trigger an administrative war that has now reached a fever pitch? The answer lies in a single, unyielding truth. Within the House of Windsor, symbolism is not a luxury. It is the only currency that retains its value over centuries. The royal box at Ascot is not a mere grandstand. It is an architectural manifestation of sovereign hierarchy, a sacred ground where every square inch is protected by the most stringent residential privileges and ancestral protocols. In the intricate tapestry of the British monarchy, symbolism is power. For generations, the configuration of the royal box has served as a living portrait of the crown's continuity. It is a space designed to broadcast a message of stability, discipline, and the absolute distinction between the sovereign line and the world outside. When the family of Queen Camilla was found seated within this restricted inner sanctum, it was not perceived as a gesture of hospitality. Instead, senior palace officials and traditionalists interpreted it as a positional invasion, a deliberate attempt to redraw the map of royal legitimacy. One veteran courtier, reflecting on the gravity of the breach in newly released documents, reportedly remarked to a colleague, quote, "The royal box is the frame of the monarchy. If you allow the frame to be crowded with those outside the direct line of succession, you blur the image of the king himself." End quote. This sentiment highlights a deeper fear that has haunted the halls of Kensington Palace for years. If the boundaries of the royal box are allowed to soften, the institution risks drifting into a state of dangerous ambiguity. This is no longer a matter of private family dynamics, it is an institutional challenge to the direct bloodline. The royal box serves as a barrier, a physical representation of the geopolitics of the enclosure. It separates those who embody the state from those who are merely associated with it. By placing extended relatives within this sanctum, the palace administration inadvertently signaled a shift toward a more inclusive and therefore less exclusive image of the crown. To the Prince of Wales, this was an unacceptable dilution of the monarchy's sacred identity. According to reports from the Lord Chamberlain's office, an internal memo circulating shortly after the event stated, quote, "The preservation of the direct line is the primary function of every public arrangement. Any deviation from this principle is a threat to the long-term survival of the institution." End quote. The logic is as simple as it is brutal. If the sanctity of the royal box can be compromised, then every other pillar of the monarchy is vulnerable to the same erosion. It is the beginning of a domino effect, where the loss of symbolic clarity leads to the loss of public authority. For the future king, protecting the sanctuary is synonymous with protecting the throne itself. As the breaking revelations of this morning continue to strip away the layers of palace secrecy, we must ask ourselves, Who truly holds the keys to the kingdom's most guarded spaces? The answer may lie in a series of clandestine maneuvers and an escalating timeline of events that began long before the first horse ever left the gate. The shadows of the palace are growing longer, and the true cost of this administrative defiance is only beginning to emerge. As this breaking investigation continues to unfold today, May 28, 2026, it is becoming clear that the House of Windsor has entered a state of cold civil war. This is a struggle fought not with weapons, but through guest lists, seating charts, and strategic visibility. Behind the velvet curtains, the palace has splintered into three distinct factions, each fighting for the future image and survival of the British monarchy. First, we see the emergence of the faction known as the Guard, led by the Prince and Princess of Wales. Their mission is absolute: to protect the institutional purity of the crown and prevent any dilution of power by non-working royal branches or extended family. For William, the survival of the monarchy depends on a sharp, unmistakable hierarchy. A source close to the Kensington Palace household reportedly described the prince's philosophy as follows, quote, "There can only be one sun at the center of the solar system. Everything else is a distraction that the crown cannot afford." End quote. Opposing them is the faction known among seasoned palace veterans as the Interlopers. These are the strategic allies orbiting Queen Camilla, whose mission appears focused on cementing the status and visibility of the Parker Bowles family before the inevitable transition to the next reign. Their goal is to normalize the presence of the Queen's children and grandchildren within the most exclusive royal circles, a move that traditionalists call a positional encroachment. Caught in the crossfire is the king himself. Facing ongoing health challenges, the sovereign is reportedly torn between his personal devotion to his wife and his constitutional duty to the institution he has spent a lifetime preparing to lead. A senior courtier reportedly whispered to a colleague during the height of the tension, quote, "His Majesty seeks harmony within his household, but the cost of that harmony may be the institutional clarity required for his son's future throne." End quote. The chronology of this fracture point is now coming to light with terrifying precision. At 1100 hours on that morning in June, the guest list was modified within the office of the Master of the Household. A secret appendix was added, bypassing the standard review process and ensuring the Parker Bowles family would occupy the most sensitive tier of the royal box. This was the moment the fuse was lit. By 14 hours and 03 minutes, the point of fracture arrived. Prince William stepped into the enclosure and witnessed the reality of the administrative betrayal. The air grew cold, and the disciplined facade of the monarchy began to crumble in real time. At 1530 hours, the earpieces of senior aides were alive with breathless, frantic chatter. Security officers were heard asking for immediate clarification on protocol as the atmosphere became increasingly untenable. One official was overheard saying into his lapel, quote, "The prince is not following the scripted route. We have a total breakdown in the coordination of the principals." End quote. Finally, at 1615 hours, the ultimate statement was made. The Prince of Wales departed Royal Ascot early, an act of silent defiance that sent shockwaves through the palace's administrative system. A breathless silence descended upon the enclosure as the realization hit. The future king had just walked away from one of the crown's most sacred traditions. But as the sun set over the manicured lawns, a deeper question emerged. What hidden mechanisms allowed this breach to occur? And how will the palace hierarchy ever recover? The investigation into the staircase of authority reveals a web of influence that goes far deeper than a simple seating mistake. As the investigation into the events of Royal Ascot reaches a critical boiling point today, May 28, 2026, a haunting question looms over the palace. How does a seating arrangement, protected by centuries of tradition, bypass the most sophisticated vetting system in the world? To the uninitiated, it may look like a clerical error. To the administrative heart of the monarchy, it is a surgical exploitation of the stairs of authority, a grim, three-step logic used to redraw the boundaries of power behind closed doors. The first tier of this staircase begins in the shadows of the contingency protocols. Palace administrative sources have now confirmed the existence of a clandestine mandate issued shortly before the event, originating from within the Queen's most trusted circle of advisors. This was not an official decree, but a tactical modification of the priority appendix. It functioned as an invisible instruction to treat certain guests not as mere visitors, but as extensions of the sovereign presence. A former official within the Lord Chamberlain's office reportedly recalled the confusion, stating in a recent internal briefing, quote, "The directive was worded with such deliberate ambiguity that it bypassed the standard filters for non-royal attendees. It created a temporary administrative vacuum that allowed the Parker Bowles family to be inserted into the sacred core." End quote. The second tier moves from the shadows into the administrative loophole of the palace archives. Under the ironclad rules of the institution, any seating chart for a location as symbolic as the royal box must undergo a rigorous process of cross-approval between all senior royal households. However, in this instance, a tactical maneuver was executed. By classifying the Ascot arrangement as a private family manifest rather than an official state seating chart, the paperwork was routed through an administrative channel that requires less scrutiny. One senior archival clerk reportedly flagged the discrepancy, whispering to a superior, quote, "The placement of non-direct relatives within the primary tier lacks the required sign-off from the Prince of Wales's office. Should we halt the printing?" End quote. The response they received was a short, definitive order, quote, "The mandate has been authorized at the highest level. Do not impede the process." End quote. The third and final tier is the administrative ultimatum. For the Prince of Wales, this was not merely a breach of etiquette, it was a fundamental violation of the consent of the heir. In the legalistic world of the dynasty, any alteration to the public image of royal hierarchy is a constitutional matter. According to the long-standing heir's prerogative, the direct successor must be consulted on any arrangement that shifts the visual representation of the monarchy's future. By bypassing William's office, the orchestrators sent a chilling message of a shadow power shift, a claim that the rules of the institution could be rewritten without the consent of its future king. One senior advisor to the prince reportedly summarized the gravity of the situation during a tense late-night meeting, stating, quote, "This is an attempt to create a new precedent through administrative stealth. If we allow this to stand, the direct line of succession becomes just another branch of an extended family." End quote. Within the House of Windsor, precedent is the architect of the future, and a single unauthorized chair can become the foundation for a new, unrecognized order. As the sun sets on this breaking news cycle, the palace is left to grapple with the reality that the stairs of authority have been climbed by those seeking to reshape the crown from within. The question that remains is not whether the lines were crossed, but how the future king will choose to burn the bridge behind him. In the wake of the Ascot incident, as breaking reports continue to reverberate across the global stage on this morning of May 28, 2026, the palace has entered a phase of calculated retaliation. The response from the Prince of Wales was not one of emotional outbursts or public denunciations. Instead, it was an exercise in administrative isolation, a cold, systematic tightening of the institutional screws that has left the opposing faction in a state of sudden, strategic paralysis. Within the House of Windsor, the most effective punishments are never loud. They are felt in the sudden closing of doors and the revocation of invisible permissions. Immediately following the events of June 18, 2024, which are now being fully declassified by palace insiders, a new directive was issued from Kensington Palace. The reaction of the Guard was swift and total. Every guest list for every future ceremonial event, from garden parties to state banquets, was officially revoked from the General Household Administration and consolidated within the private office of the Prince of Wales. This move effectively stripped the Queen's office of its ability to influence the visibility of the Parker Bowles family. One senior aide reportedly described the mood in the administrative wings. saying, quote, "The prince has moved from observer to architect. Every door that was left open at Ascot is now being systematically locked from the inside," end quote. Under the sterilized banner of budgetary restructuring, the shadow privileges previously enjoyed by the extended Parker Bowles family have been quietly frozen. Access to royal transport, secondary residences, and ceremonial support has been placed under a magnifying glass of institutional efficiency. It is an administrative siege conducted through spreadsheets and policy shifts, a message that personal favoritism has no place in the architecture of the future king's reign. An internal memo from the royal purse allegedly stated, quote, "All non-core expenditures related to extended family hospitality are to be suspended pending a full review of air contingent protocols," end quote. Perhaps most striking in this counterattack was the role of the Princess of Wales, in what historians are now calling the heirs accord. Standing in silent, unwavering alignment with her husband, Catherine provided the ultimate symbolic shield during the most tense hours of the fallout. Experts note that her composure was a punitive signal in itself, a demonstration of the discipline required to hold the center. A court observer was heard whispering during a recent closed-door reception, quote, "The princess is not just a supporter, she is the enforcer of the boundary. Her silence is the final word on who belongs within the inner circle and who does not," end quote. The faction labeled as the interlopers now finds themselves in a state of profound positional isolation. The silence from Prince William is not a sign of retreat. It is the strategic preparation for a reign that will have no tolerance for ambiguity. By reclaiming control over the mechanisms of royal legitimacy, the future king has signaled that the monarchy is a constitutional vessel, not a family business. The heirs accord has created a unified front that the Queen's circle has found impossible to penetrate. As we look toward the final resolution of this royal standoff, the shadows of the palace are concealing a transformation that will redefine the monarchy for a century to come. The interlopers are beginning to realize that the rules they attempted to rewrite are now being used to erase their presence from the future of the crown. The question that remains is whether this cold isolation will lead to a permanent fracture, or if the weight of the institution will force a total surrender. The final moves in this game of shadows are already in motion, and the consequences will be felt far beyond the palace walls. As the breaking news regarding the House of Windsor continues to dominate the global narrative this morning, May 28, 2026, the fallout from the Royal Ascot incident has reached a definitive crossroads. The invisible battle lines drawn over a seating chart 2 years ago have now grown into a scenario tree that will dictate the survival of the British monarchy. The palace stands at the precipice of a transformation that is as much about constitutional law as it is about family loyalty. Behind the guarded walls of the institution, 3 distinct futures are being analyzed by the finest constitutional minds and senior courtiers. The first branch of this scenario tree is the permanent fracture. In this reality, the palace remains split into 2 parallel governments, each operating with its own agenda and its own definition of royal legitimacy. This kickban would see a continued administrative deadlock between the office of the Prince of Wales and the circles surrounding the Queen. Such a divide risks paralyzing the monarchy's international diplomatic efforts, as foreign states find themselves unsure which faction represents the true future of the crown. One senior diplomatic source reportedly warned, quote, "A house divided against itself cannot provide the stability required of a global sovereign. This path leads to the eventual irrelevance of the institution," end quote. The second branch represents the fragile compromise. This involves a clandestine agreement where the Parker Bowles family is permitted to maintain a degree of social visibility but is stripped of all administrative and symbolic weight. They would become ceremonial ghosts present at the events but absent from the official record of the dynasty. While this might maintain a veneer of family peace, insiders suggest it would only delay the inevitable confrontation. A palace veteran recently observed, quote, "A half measure in the world of Vung Queen is merely a slow-motion surrender. You cannot be partially royal any more than you can be partially sovereign," end quote. The third and most realistic branch is the Great Purge. According to long-term palace observers, Prince William is already moving to implement this vision. It is the restoration of a slimmed-down monarchy with surgical precision. In this future, the institution is stripped back to its absolute core. The direct bloodline and the working royals who serve the state, all extended family members, regardless of their personal ties to the king or queen, are systematically removed from the visual and administrative narrative of the crown. To the Prince of Wales, this is not an act of cruelty, but one of institutional discipline. An internal report from the Office of the Heir allegedly stated, quote, "The survival of the crown depends on its unmistakability. We must remove every shadow of ambiguity to preserve the light of the direct line." End quote. The events of Royal Ascot were never truly about a few chairs in a private enclosure. They were a lesson in the nature of institutional existence. In the grand cycle of history, individuals are merely temporary custodians, but the Vung Min is a constant that cannot afford a single flaw in its symbolic armor. As the Prince of Wales prepares for his eventual transition to the throne, his actions at Ascot serve as a grim reminder of a law that has governed Windsor for over 1,000 years. At the heart of this struggle lies a cold, unyielding philosophy: the firm before the family. In the calculus of the palace, institutional duty will always supersede personal emotion. Duty is the weight that keeps the throne steady. Emotion is the friction that threatens to set it ablaze. Next time you observe a royal appearance, do not look at the smiles or the fashion. Look at the positioning. Look at the distances between the figures. In the world of the House of Windsor, there are no accidents. A person standing 1 foot out of place is not a mistake. It is the beginning of an administrative coup. The silence from the palace today is the loudest message of all. And as the clock ticks toward a new era, we are left to wonder, in the fight for the soul of the monarchy, who will be left standing in the light of the direct line, and who will be lost to the shadows of the past. 10:15 a.m. London time. This morning, April 3rd, 2026, the digital infrastructure of the British monarchy just shifted its tectonic plates. While the world was drinking its morning coffee, a dry, one-paragraph statement appeared on the official website of the Royal Warrant Holders Association. It was not a celebratory press release. It was a cold, clinical execution of power. King Charles III has officially activated what insiders are calling the economic nuclear option for the House of Wales. After 115 years of silence, a constitutional seal has been broken. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has been granted the official authority to issue royal warrants of appointment. To the untrained eye, this is a badge for a marmalade company or a tailor. To those who understand the architecture of the crown, this is the beginning of the most consequential shift in the modern era. Before we dive into the secret files of Room 18, hit the like button and subscribe. If you believe Catherine is the true future of the monarchy, type Royal Seal in the comments right now. Your engagement helps us keep these investigations going. The setting was Room 18 at number 1 Buckingham Gate. Inside this high-security administrative hub, officials from the Royal Warrant Holders Association and the Lord Chamberlain's office have spent months finalizing a memorandum titled The Future Grantors Initiative 2026. This document marks the end of a century-long freeze. Not since May 1910, when Princess Mary of Teck exercised this power before becoming Queen Mary, has a Princess of Wales held such institutional weight. Think about that timeline. Not during the era of Queen Alexandra. Not during the decades of Princess Diana. In August 1996, when Diana lost her HRH title at Kensington Palace, the door to this level of state-sanctioned commercial influence was slammed shut. But this morning, Catherine did what her predecessor never could. She didn't just win the public's heart. She secured the Crown's ink. A high-ranking palace aide was heard describing the king's decision as a deliberate recalibration of the succession. The king reportedly stated that the princess is no longer just a representative of the institution, but an active architect of its survival. This is not a hobby. This is the how it works of a velvet coup. First, a business must supply the royal household for at least 5 consecutive years. Second, they must pass a rigorous audit by the Lord Chamberlain's office regarding sustainability and ethics. Finally, the princess herself places the royal seal on their brand. The immediate consequence? A global commercial explosion. While certain individuals in California are launching lifestyle brands based on jam and orchard aesthetics, Catherine has just been handed the keys to the entire British heritage industry. One is a celebrity trying to sell a product. The other is a princess deciding which products define the nation. The authority is granted under a specific legal mechanism. The king signed the final ultimatum at Sandringham on April 3, 2024, exactly 2 years ago today. That signature set a countdown that ends now. Applications for the Catherine-approved system will officially open between May and June of 2026. For many British manufacturers, this is the most prestigious endorsement in the world. And for the first time in over a century, the gatekeeper is a woman who will one day be queen. But as the ink dries on the Future Granters initiative, a heavy silence hangs over Clarence House. Queen Camilla, who until this morning was the only woman with this level of appointment power in the new reign, has issued no comment. Inside the palace, the hierarchy is being redrawn. Authority rarely expands without breaking the existing balance. Is this a peaceful transition, or has the Princess of Wales just outmaneuvered the Queen Consort for the soul of the British economy? We have 3 possible scenarios unfolding as we speak. In the first, Catherine and Camilla enter a quiet commercial arms race, forcing brands to choose between the old guard and the new era. In the second, the Kate effect becomes so dominant that the Queen's influence becomes purely ceremonial. But the most likely scenario? Catherine becomes the de facto CEO of the monarchy's brand, bridging the gap between ancient tradition and modern global markets, leaving everyone else, from London to Montecito, in the shadows of her new authority. The real question isn't whether Catherine is ready. The question is, why did the king feel the need to bypass the traditional hierarchy now? As we monitor the updates from Buckingham Gate, one thing is certain. The royal seal has a new master, and the silence from the other side of the palace is deafening. Stay tuned as we dig deeper into the secret lists of companies about to be purged from the royal register. The 2026 shift has only just begun. The administrative notification issued this morning contains a detail that has sent shockwaves through the corridors of Clarence House. It confirms that Prince William and Catherine will not merely share a joint office for these appointments. Instead, they have been authorized as 2 distinct, independent grantors. In the unyielding hierarchy of the British monarchy, this is what insiders are calling economic martial law. For the last 2 years, Queen Camilla has occupied a singular position of power. As the only woman authorized to grant royal warrants in this new reign, she held the keys to the kingdom's most prestigious commercial endorsements. But that monopoly ended at 10:15 this morning. By introducing Catherine into this specific institutional space, King Charles has authorized a direct overlap of influence. In palace terms, a buffer zone has been removed. To understand the tension, you have to look at the silk tapestry room at Clarence House. This is the inner sanctum where the Queen Consort has traditionally hosted the legacy brands and heritage suppliers that have served the crown for decades. These are the old guard of British industry. But the memorandum from the Royal Warrant Holders Association suggests a new set of criteria is being drafted. The Catherine generation of warrants is expected to prioritize modern sustainability, ethical supply chains, and artisan innovation standards that may put the traditional vendors in the silk tapestry room on notice. This isn't just about fashion, it's about the Royal Charter. The authority to grant a warrant creates a subtle but fierce competition for commercial prestige. When 2 women of different generations represent the same institution, the market inevitably decides whose seal carries more weight. Here is the how it works of this power shift, the clinical mechanism of the royal warrant. First, the supply phase. A company must demonstrate consistent service to the royal household for a minimum of 5 years. This is the entry barrier. Second, the audit trigger. The Royal Warrant Holders Association conducts a deep dive review of the company's financial stability and corporate ethics. Third, the mandate. Once the board approves, the princess herself signs the appointment. This is the moment of transformation. The business is now permitted to display the royal arms and the words, "By appointment to Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales." The immediate consequence? Fiscal prestige. Economists have tracked the Kate effect for over a decade, but this formalized version is unprecedented. Retail analysts estimate that a brand receiving Catherine's official seal can expect an international revenue surge of 25 to 40% almost overnight. This is no longer just public admiration, it is a government-sanctioned economic engine. Inside the palace walls, the question is no longer about whether Catherine has the influence. The question is how the Queen Consort will navigate this sudden encroachment on her territory. Observers have noted that in the delicate architecture of the monarchy, authority rarely expands without an equal and opposite reaction from the existing power centres. As Catherine prepares her first list of appointees for the May 2026 opening, the traditional suppliers at Clarence House are reportedly reassessing their positions. The princess is not just choosing suppliers, she is defining the future aesthetic of the British state. And while the public sees a smiling princess, the brands behind the scenes see a woman who now holds the power to make or break their global reputation. But there is a darker side to this economic martial law. As the new standards are implemented, a secret review list is circulating within the Lord Chamberlain's office. It contains the names of long-standing warrant holders who may not survive the transition to Catherine's new criteria. The names on that list might explain why the mood inside certain royal apartments has turned decidedly cold this morning. The Kate effect has just become the Kate mandate. And the first casualties of this new era are already being identified in the shadows. While the digital ink was still drying on the Royal Warrant Holders Association's website this morning, April 3rd, 2026, a distinct shadow was cast 6,000 miles away. The statement released by the palace contained a phrase that palace observers are calling a coded ultimatum. It emphasized that the authority to grant a royal warrant is an institutional responsibility, not a personal preference. To those watching the unfolding rivalry between London and California, the implication was devastatingly clear. This is the moment the British state officially separated the role of a royal from the role of a celebrity. At this very hour, the contrast between two worlds could not be more stark. In Montecito, Meghan Markle is reportedly finalizing the rollout of her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, a commercial venture built on personal branding, organic jams, and digital marketing. It is a world of influencers, click-through rates, and celebrity endorsements. But across the Atlantic, the Princess of Wales was seen in the Central Library at Windsor Castle, surrounded by national heritage files and centuries of industrial records. Catherine isn't launching a brand, she is presiding over the very institutions that define British prestige. A former palace communications official recently noted that the disparity is no longer just social, it is constitutional. A celebrity sells a product because they want you to like them, the source observed. A princess grants a warrant because the company has proven its worth to the state over 5 years of service. This is the grim reality facing the Sussexes this morning. Meghan has spent the last 2 years attempting to become a global influencer-in-chief, but with today's announcement, Catherine has been officially designated as the supreme judge of all influencers. Under the Royal Charter, a royal warrant is a state-sanctioned endorsement. It is a legal mechanism that carries the weight of the British government and the sovereign. When Catherine places her seal on a heritage tailor or a sustainable furniture maker, she isn't just saying she likes the product, she is certifying its quality for the global market. Meghan's commercial success depends on the fickle nature of the American retail market. Catherine's influence is now backed by the administrative machinery of Room 18 at Buckingham Gate. While one woman is struggling to maintain a digital audience, the other has just been handed the authority to reshape the reputation of an entire national industry. The institutional responsibility clause in this morning's document is being interpreted as a direct blow to the Sussex business model. It signals that the Crown does not view lifestyle branding as a legitimate royal function. By granting Catherine this specific power, King Charles has effectively built a fortress around the House of Wales, one that is inaccessible to anyone outside the direct line of succession. As we move closer to the May 2026 application window, the commercial world is already making its choice. For a British artisan, a mention on a California lifestyle blog is a temporary spike in sales. But a royal warrant from the Princess of Wales is a permanent seat at the table of global luxury. But there is a deeper, more unsettling detail hidden in the Windsor Library files. Sources suggest that Catherine is currently reviewing a list of companies that have previously sought association with the Sussexes. Under the new institutional responsibility mandate, those companies may find themselves permanently blacklisted from receiving a royal warrant. The princess isn't just granting power, she is drawing a line in the sand. And as of this morning, the world of celebrity branding just found itself on the wrong side of that line. The silence from California is telling, because how do you compete with a woman who can move the markets of a nation with a single stroke of a pen? The most chilling detail of this morning's announcement isn't the power itself, but the timing. King Charles III has deliberately bypassed the immediate present, setting the operational launch for May 2026. Why the 2-year delay? Why wait until the middle of the decade to activate a power that has been dormant since 1910? Inside the high-security archives of the Royal Mint, a secret project is already underway. Engravers are currently working on a bespoke seal design, specifically for the Princess of Wales. This is not a temporary stamp. It is a permanent, constitutional instrument of state. The last time the Royal Mint produced an appointment seal for a Princess of Wales was for Mary of Teck 115 years ago. By resurrecting this specific tradition, the King is sending a message that transcends mere ceremony. He is reconstituting the office of the Princess of Wales as a powerhouse of the British establishment. Palace insiders are calling this the second term plan. King Charles is a pragmatist. He is acutely aware that his own health has become a variable in the royal equation. By granting Catherine this authority now, he is ensuring that the keys to the treasure are safely transferred to the House of Wales before any further instability can arise. This is a strategic insurance policy. If the King's reign is shorter than hoped, the economic and institutional foundations of the monarchy will already be firmly under the control of William and Catherine. This move effectively walls off the British industry from any competing factions. By the time May 2026 arrives, the Prince and Princess of Wales will not just be the faces of the monarchy, they will be its primary operators. This isn't just a promotion for Catherine, it is an institutional blockade. It ensures that the prestige of the Crown's endorsement remains exclusively within the direct line of succession, leaving no room for the half-in, half-out commercial models attempted by those in California. The historical weight of the 1910 precedent cannot be overstated. Mary of Teck was a formidable figure who helped steer the monarchy through the collapse of empires. By placing Catherine in that same lineage, Charles is signaling that the princess is being groomed to be the most powerful queen consort in modern history. She is being given the tools to shape the national character long before the eventual transfer of the throne. But there is a question that the Royal Warrant Holders Association has yet to answer. In the confidential memos circulating within the Lord Chamberlain's office, the 2026 launch date is tied to a comprehensive audit of all existing royal suppliers. This audit is reportedly designed to purge any companies that have maintained ambiguous loyalties or commercial ties to non-working members of the royal family. As the engravers at the Royal Mint finalize the new seal, the message to the business world is clear. The future belongs to the House of Wales. The delay until 2026 isn't for administrative ease. It's a cooling-off period, a final chance for the industry to align itself with the new centre of power. And as the morning sun hits the stone walls of Windsor, one has to wonder, what exactly did the king see in the variable of the future that made this 115-year restoration so urgent? The answer may lie in a set of documents that are still under seal, waiting for the year 2026 to reveal their true purpose. The announcement at 10:15 this morning has triggered what industry analysts are calling the great realignment of British commerce. Across boardrooms from Mayfair to Manchester, a sense of quiet panic is setting in. This isn't just an administrative change, it is a market-shaking event. For the first time in over a century, the British business community is facing the Catherine Mandate. Internally, this is being referred to as Operation 2026. The implications for the private sector are staggering. For over a decade, the Kate effect was a volatile, unpredictable surge in sales triggered by a single photograph. But as of today, that cultural phenomenon is being codified into a state-sanctioned economic force. The FOMO, the fear of missing out among high-end retailers and heritage manufacturers, is palpable. The message circulating in the City of London is clear. Any luxury brand without the Princess of Wales's seal of approval after 2026 will be viewed as culturally and commercially obsolete. The timeline for this economic takeover is brutal. According to confidential memos from the Royal Warrant Holders Association, the deadline for compliance is set for Q4 of 2025. By that date, every company seeking Catherine's endorsement must overhaul their internal structures to meet a new, uncompromising set of sustainability and heritage standards. These are not the Queen's standards, nor are they the King's. They are Catherine's personal mandates, designed to reflect a modern, ethical, and elite British identity. If a company fails to meet these benchmarks by the 2025 deadline, they are effectively blacklisted before the gates even open. Then, in June 2026, the first field satiation audits will commence. Inspectors from the Lord Chamberlain's office will descend on the textile mills of the Midlands and the artisan distilleries of the Scottish Highlands. They won't just be looking at the quality of the goods. They will be looking for the Catherine DNA, a blend of traditional craftsmanship and 21st century ethics. The immediate consequence of this strategy is a massive, tectonic shift in capital. We are witnessing a flight of investment away from fast fashion giants and mass-market luxury, moving instead toward the small, hyper-specialized heritage producers that the Princess has quietly championed for years. This is a deliberate starvation of the disposable economy. By the time the first warrants are issued in mid-2026, the British market will have been reshaped in Catherine's image. For a business, a royal warrant from the Princess of Wales isn't just a plaque on the wall. It is an insurance policy against the shifting tides of global retail. In an era where celebrity brands in California are struggling to maintain consumer trust, Catherine is offering something far more valuable: institutional permanence. But as the scramble for the 2025 compliance deadline intensifies, a disturbing pattern is emerging. Several long-standing suppliers to the royal family companies that have held warrants for decades are reportedly failing these new, rigorous audits. The Catherine generation of warrants is not interested in legacy for legacy's sake. The Princess is clearing the board, and as the corporate world prepares for the June 2026 inspections, there is a growing realization that some of the most famous names in British retail may be about to lose their royal status forever. The question isn't who will gain a warrant, it's who has already been marked for removal. The list is growing, and the first names to be erased might surprise everyone. As the sun sets over the London skyline on this historic 3rd of April, 2026, the economic and institutional landscape of the British monarchy has been fundamentally altered. We are no longer speculating about the future. We are living in the Catherine Mandate. But where does this road lead? The analysts at the Royal Warrant Holders Association have drafted a scenario tree to predict the fallout of this massive power shift, and the results are chilling. In Scenario 1, the high conflict path, we see a Cold War of the Seals. The overlap of authority between Queen Camilla and the Princess of Wales creates a fractured market. Major British brands are forced to choose between the traditional, old guard prestige of the Queen Consort's office and the modern, high-velocity influence of the House of Wales. In this scenario, the palace becomes a house divided by commercial loyalties, and the silk tapestry room at Clarence House enters a direct competition with the new Windsor strategy. Scenario 2 offers a more public distraction. As Catherine's institutional authority solidifies in May and June of 2026, a PR retaliation is launched from Montecito. Meghan Markle, sensing the permanence of Catherine's new role, initiates a series of high-profile media scandals designed to overshadow the royal warrant announcements. It is a battle of celebrity branding versus institutional power. But while a scandal lasts a week, a royal warrant lasts a decade. The third and most realistic scenario, however, is what insiders are calling the ascension of the economic queen. In this version of reality, Catherine's influence far outstrips the traditional warrants held by Queen Camilla. The Queen Consort gracefully retreats to the traditional legacy industries, while Catherine takes total control over the future of British commerce tech, sustainable fashion, and global innovation. Catherine doesn't just wait for the throne, she begins to rule the economy from the sidelines. Why is scenario 3 the most likely? Because King Charles is, above all else, a pragmatist. He understands that in a post-Brexit world, the monarchy must justify its existence through economic utility. He needs a figure who can save the British reputation on the global stage and maintain the crown's relevance for the next 50 years. Catherine is the only asset he has that carries that level of international currency. By handing her the royal warrant authority, he isn't just being kind, he is being strategic. But as we close this investigation, a final, shocking detail has emerged from the administrative offices at No. 1 Buckingham Gate. There is a blacklist circulating among the auditors. In the upcoming 2026 review, several high-profile companies that were previously close to the Camilla circle or had quiet ties to the Sussexes are being marked for non-renewal. This is more than a transition, it is a velvet purge. The Princess of Wales is clearing the decks of any brand that doesn't align with her vision for the future of the crown. The era of soft power is over. The era of the Kate Mandate has begun. Before we go, make sure you hit that like button if you found this investigation eye-opening. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into the hidden files of the palace. What do you think is Catherine's new power and necessary step for the monarchy, or is it a move that goes too far? Let us know in the comments below. One last thing, keep a very close watch on the official photos from the next state banquet. Look specifically at the seal embroidered on the Princess of Wales's sleeve. The design of that seal holds the key to which companies have already been chosen for the May 2026 window. The secret is hiding in plain sight. We'll be here to decode it when the time comes. Thank you for watching.
0 hour, 6:15 a.m., April 5th, 2026. While the world was waking up to a quiet Sunday morning, the digital landscape of the Montecito Empire underwent a surgical extraction. Without a single press release or a word of warning, Meghan Markle's brand, American Riviera Orchard, has been scrubbed. Every single frame featuring Prince Harry has vanished from the official website and social media grid. This is not a technical glitch. This is the first phase of a high-stakes brand decoupling that signals the definitive end of the Sussex era as we know it. If you are watching this, you are witnessing the aftermath of a nuclear detonation in the British High Court that has finally reached the shores of California. Welcome to an urgent investigation into the collapse of the House of Montecito. Before we dissect the classified documents from this morning's legal briefings, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Hit the like button right now if you believe the truth deserves to be heard, and drop a comment below with the word accountability to join our community of investigators. The motive behind this sudden erasure is as cold as it is calculated. Meghan Markle is no longer just angry. She is cutting her losses. Sources close to the Duchess report that the atmosphere inside their $19 million estate has turned from icy to hostile. At exactly 2:14 a.m. this morning, lights were burning bright in the second-floor West Wing office of the Montecito mansion. Inside, a team of 4 elite crisis management lawyers was seen drafting a document titled Statement of Individual Liability. The catalyst. A series of leaked Facebook threads from 2011 that have effectively turned Harry into a toxic asset. For years, the couple sold a curated narrative. In their 2022 Netflix documentary, Meghan looked into the camera and told the world that she called her husband H as a secret, intimate shorthand for their unique love. But the ghost of 2011 has just entered the chat. The High Court in London has officially verified messages between Harry and a journalist. He claimed under oath he barely knew. The court records show Harry was the one who initiated contact, writing, and I quote, "It is H in case you were confused by the name and picture." He wasn't just talking to any journalist. He was flirtatiously messaging Charlotte Griffiths of the very newspaper he is currently suing for millions. In a devastating series of exchanges, the Duke of Sussex refers to her as Sugar and Griff. He jokes about racing her in his blue Golf GTI. But the line that has reportedly sent Meghan into a state of pure fury is Harry's own words. "Miss our movie snuggles." Think about the irony. While Harry spent the last 5 years calling the British press a criminal enterprise, the evidence now shows him signing off messages to a reporter with rows of kisses. He told a judge in 2024 that he had no friendly relationships with journalists. That lie, now proven by digital fingerprints, has triggered a perjury risk that could see the Duke facing criminal investigations. According to an insider present during the 2 a.m. meeting, Meghan's reaction was clinical. She reportedly told her lead advisor, and I quote, "I did not give up my life to be dragged down by a ghost from a decade ago. If he lied to the court, he lied to me." This is the PR mechanism of survival. Meghan is pivoting from power couple to independent woman misled by an impulsive husband. The timing is critical. In less than 3 weeks, the couple is scheduled to land in Sydney for a high-profile tour of Australia. But the ground has shifted. The Not Our King protests have evolved into Not His Brother rallies. With a projected debt of $30 million in legal fees and security costs, the Sussexes needed the Australian tour to be a financial triumph. Instead, it is becoming a gauntlet of public ridicule. The financial pressure is immense. The decoupling of the brand is a desperate attempt to save Meghan's upcoming lifestyle contracts from Harry's legal fallout. If Harry is found in contempt of court or investigated for perjury, his visa status in the United States becomes a target for the Department of Homeland Security. Meghan knows this. By erasing him from her digital footprint this morning, she is signaling to her investors that she is a solo act. The evidence is mounting, and the timeline is undeniable. Harry's crusades were built on a foundation of selective memory that has finally collapsed. We are tracking every move from the Montecito legal team as they prepare for the fallout of the Australia cancellation. Do not look away. The next 6 hours will determine if Prince Harry remains a resident of California or a man without a country. Subscribe and turn on notifications because our next update involves a silver briefcase seen leaving the estate at 4 a.m. This is breaking news, and the story is only just beginning. The digital scrubbing in Montecito was just the smoke. We have now accessed the fire. As of this morning, April 5, 2026, a leaked internal financial summary from the Sussexes' legal representatives reveals a catastrophic liability. The total projected debt for Prince Harry following his failed litigation against Associated Newspapers has reached a staggering $30 million. This is not a simple legal bill. This is a cost-order death spiral triggered by what the court calls indemnity costs, a penalty reserved for those who bring cases based on questionable evidence or misleading testimony. The High Court of Justice in London has just issued Order No. 102/2026. This document is a legal ultimatum. It demands that the Duke of Sussex provide a written explanation for the stark contradiction between his sworn testimony in January 2024 and the digital timestamps recovered from late 2011. In 2024, he told a judge he had no personal relationship with the press. In 2026, the world is reading his own messages where he calls a journalist Sugar and invites her for movie snuggles. The media is not just reporting on this, they are weaponizing it. The Daily Mail has officially branded their counteroffensive as Operation H-Bomb. It is a brutal irony. The very nickname Meghan Markle used to signify their private, untouchable bond in their Netflix documentary. H was the same code Harry used to flirt with the tabloid world a decade before they met. According to sources within the newspaper's legal team, the H-bomb strategy was designed to wait until the final moment of the trial to achieve maximum credibility destruction. To work. The fallout has already crossed the Pacific and landed in Australia. The couple's upcoming tour, intended to be a multi-million-dollar comeback, is disintegrating in real time. We can confirm that the Park Hyatt Sydney has officially cancelled the VIP reservation for the Sussex party scheduled for late April. The hotel cited insurmountable security risks, following the surge of the Not Our King, Not His Brother protest movement. When the billionaire sponsors who were supposed to fund this tour saw the movie snuggle headlines, the checks stopped being signed. The Sussex brand is no longer a luxury asset. It is a liability that high-end hotels and corporate partners are fleeing. Behind the closed doors of the $19 million Montecito mansion, the tension has reportedly turned physical, not between the couple, but against the property itself. A former household staffer, who requested anonymity for fear of legal retaliation, described a scene of total chaos in the primary living suite. When the BBC broadcast a special report detailing the H-bomb leaks, Meghan Markle reportedly launched a $30,000 Hermes Birkin bag directly at the 85-inch television screen. The staffer recalled Meghan shouting at Harry, and I quote, "You didn't just lie to the court, you made me look like a fool in front of the entire world. This was supposed to be my year." The reality is setting in. The Sussexes are facing a pincer movement of a $30 million debt on one side and a criminal perjury investigation on the other. But the most dangerous element isn't the money or the courts. It is the silence currently radiating from the palace in London, and the growing distance Meghan is putting between herself and her husband's legal ruins. As the sun sets over California today, the question isn't whether the brand can be saved. The question is who will be left standing when the final gavel falls. The silver briefcase seen leaving the estate earlier today wasn't filled with ma'am. It was filled with documents that could change the line of succession forever. The sequence of self-inflicted wounds that has led to this April 5th collapse was not an accident. It was a forensic trail of hubris, meticulously documented over 14 years. To understand why Meghan Markle is currently scrubbing her digital empire, we must look at the timeline of a strategic suicide. The digital ink was barely dry on Prince Harry's public identity when he began planting the seeds of his own destruction. Between late 2011 and mid-2012, Harry was operating in a reality he thought he could control. Inside the archives of the Daily Mail's legal defense lies the time bomb. It is a thread of Facebook messages where the Duke of Sussex, using his private profile, initiated contact with Charlotte Griffiths. He didn't just talk to her. He cultivated a relationship. He called her Sugar. He referenced racing her in his blue Golf GTI. He wrote the words that are now being analyzed by every divorce attorney in California. "Miss our movie snuggles." At the time, Harry believed these were private flirtations. He didn't realize he was handing a loaded weapon to the very media machine he would later attempt to dismantle. Flash forward to January 2024. This was the break point. Standing under the weight of a sworn oath in the London High Court, Harry made a definitive choice. He testified that he had no personal relationships with journalists. He claimed he did not know Charlotte Griffiths beyond a single, fleeting encounter at a party. By denying the existence of those messages, Harry didn't just commit to a narrative. He activated the mechanism of perjury. Under the Perjury Act of 1911, a false statement under oath is a criminal offense. Harry gambled that the Facebook thread would never see the light of day. He was wrong. By December 2025, the financial walls of the Montecito estate began to close in. The Sussexes' primary income streams were drying up, and the legal bills were mounting into the millions. In a desperate move to stabilize their cash flow, the couple signed a multi-million-dollar contract for a royalish tour of Australia. The goal was simple: monetize the royal brand in a Commonwealth nation to fund their legal battles in London. It was a survival strategy built on the assumption that their public credibility was still intact. That assumption was incinerated on March 28, 2026. In a move that shocked the legal world, the High Court released the full, unredacted Facebook thread from 2011. The evidence was undeniable. It wasn't just one message. It was a months-long history of intimacy and shared secrets. The H-bomb had finally detonated. The consequences were immediate. Beyond the legal risk of a perjury investigation, the release exposed a level of personal betrayal that Meghan Markle could not ignore. The intimate nickname H, which she had marketed as a symbol of their unique bond, was now public property, proven to have been used by Harry with a tabloid reporter years before they met. By April 2, 2026, the Australian tour was in ruins. The Republic movement in Sydney and Melbourne gathered over 500,000 signatures in just 4 days, demanding the government revoke the Sussexes' security funding. The public sentiment was clear. Australia would not pay to host a couple whose narrative was built on a proven falsehood. This brings us to today, April 5, 2026. Inside the Montecito office, the atmosphere is clinical. Meghan Markle has reportedly issued a final ultimatum. Harry has been told to pay the $30 million legal debt from his private inheritance, or face a formal separation of assets. Meghan is no longer playing the role of the supportive wife. She is executing a cold-blooded business maneuver to protect her remaining brand equity. Harry is no longer a partner. He is a liability. And as the sun sets over the Pacific, the world is waiting for the one document that hasn't been leaked yet: the divorce filing. The $30 million figure isn't a random estimate. It is the result of a specific legal mechanism designed to punish those who abuse the judicial system. Inside the High Court of Justice, this is known as the costs order death spiral. And as of April 5, 2026, the trigger has been pulled. To understand why Prince Harry's financial world is collapsing, we have to look at step 1, the transition from standard costs to indemnity costs. Normally, the loser of a civil case pays a portion of the winner's legal fees. But when a judge determines that a claimant has acted in bad faith, utilized false evidence, or committed what the court suspects as perjury, they activate the indemnity clause. Because the 2011 Facebook thread proved that Harry's 2024 testimony was a fabrication, the judge has ordered him to pay nearly 100% of the Associated newspaper's legal expenses. This leads directly to step 2. The bill. The Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday have utilized elite, Tier 1 legal counsel for over 4 years of litigation. Every hour of research, every expert witness, and every courtroom minute has been logged. Sources close to the defense confirm that the submitted invoice for these accumulated fees is estimated between £15 and £20 million. This is a debt that cannot be negotiated. It is a court-mandated liability that has now been served to the Duke of Sussex's legal team with a finality that has sent shockwaves through Montecito. But the real terror for the Sussex brand lies in step 3, the freeze. Under British law, once a costs order of this magnitude is issued, a 14-day countdown begins. If the total amount is not transferred into the court's escrow account within those 336 hours, the judge has the authority to issue an international asset freeze. This is not restricted to the United Kingdom. Because of reciprocal legal agreements between the UK and the United States, this order can reach directly into Harry's American bank accounts. Think about the implications for their remaining revenue streams. The residual Thursday Lau from the Penguin Random House book deals and the final installments from the Netflix contract are now in the crosshairs. If the court freezes Harry's global assets, those payments will be diverted into a legal vacuum until the £20 million debt is satisfied. This is the exact moment where the partnership between Harry and Meghan has fundamentally fractured. Meghan Markle is first and foremost an entrepreneur. Her entire business model for American Riviera Orchard relies on liquid capital and the ability to move funds freely for production and marketing. If Harry's name is attached to their joint accounts, those funds are now a target for the High Court. The consequence is a clinical, legal amputation. To protect her own wealth and the future of her children's inheritance, Meghan has been advised that she must sever the financial tie. This morning's digital scrubbing was just the outward sign of a much deeper internal procedure. By initiating a brand decoupling, Meghan is positioning herself as an independent entity, insulated from the indemnity costs that are about to drain Harry's personal fortune. The mechanism is irreversible. Once the 14-day clock expires, the freeze becomes a permanent stain on Harry's credit and his standing with the Internal Revenue Service. Meghan Markle reportedly told her financial advisors at 3 a.m. today that she cannot be the collateral damage for a lie she didn't tell. Harry is now standing alone on a sinking ship, and the lifeboat Meghan just launched only has room for one. The question remains, what happens on the 15th day when the world finds out exactly how much, or how little, is left in the Duke's private coffers? The crisis surrounding Prince Harry has officially shifted from a tabloid scandal into a high-level diplomatic confrontation. As of 8 a.m. this morning, April 5, 2026, the legal walls are no longer just closing in on the Montecito estate. They are crossing international borders. We have obtained confirmation regarding the existence of Immigration File 55A, a classified review currently being conducted by the United States Department of Homeland Security. This file is not a routine check. It is a targeted investigation into the Duke of Sussex's residency status. The mechanism behind File 55A is grounded in a specific clause regarding material misrepresentation. In the eyes of United States immigration law, providing false testimony under oath in a foreign court is a significant red flag. Because the London High Court has verified that Harry's 2024 statements directly contradicted his 2011 digital history, the Department of Homeland Security is now questioning the good moral character requirement of his visa. If Harry is found to have lied to a judge in the United Kingdom, it creates a precedent that could justify the revocation of his right to reside in California. The escalation does not stop at the Atlantic. 5,000 miles away, the Australian border force has entered the arena. The planned April tour, which was once viewed as a diplomatic soft power move, is now being treated as a potential security threat. Internal memos from the Australian border force indicate that they are seriously considering the revocation of Harry's diplomatic visa waiver. The justification: public order risk. The 500,000 signatures gathered by the Republic movement in Australia have transformed Harry and Meghan from royal visitors into catalysts for civil unrest. The Australian authorities are reportedly unwilling to authorize the massive security expenditure required to protect a couple whose presence is currently inciting mass protests. If the border force follows through, Prince Harry could face the ultimate humiliation of being denied entry at Sydney Airport, a move that would effectively end the Sussexes' international influence. But perhaps the most immediate threat comes from the very courtroom where this began. In London, the High Court is preparing a mandate that goes beyond financial penalties. The legal term is contempt of court. The presiding judge has the authority to issue a civil arrest warrant if Harry refuses to return to London to explain the discrepancies in his testimony. This is the ultimate authority staircase. Harry's legal team in Montecito has spent the last 48 hours trying to negotiate a virtual appearance, but the court is demanding his physical presence. The implications are chilling. If a civil warrant is issued, Harry would be unable to step foot on British soil without being detained for questioning. He would be in exile in every sense of the word, unable to return to his homeland, unwelcome in Australia, and under investigation in the United States. Meghan Markle's team is acutely aware of the gravity of these high-level files. Our sources indicate that her lawyers have spent the morning reviewing the derivative status of her and the children's legal standing. If Harry's visa is compromised by a perjury investigation, Meghan must ensure her own residency is not tied to his sinking ship. The brand decoupling is no longer just about Mutt and Instagram followers. It is about avoiding a diplomatic catastrophe that could result in the family being uprooted once again. As the clock ticks toward the 14th-day deadline, the question is no longer whether Harry will lose his lawsuit. The question is whether he is about to lose his freedom of movement entirely. The silver briefcase seen leaving the estate earlier today may hold the only set of documents that can prevent a total international shutdown. One name on those documents has the power to stop this, but that person hasn't picked up the phone in over 2 years. The pieces on this global chessboard are moving with a speed that suggests a final resolution is imminent. As of mid-morning on April 5, 2026, our investigative team has analyzed the data and mapped out the 3 most probable outcomes for what remains of the House of Montecito. Each path leads to a different kind of ending, but all of them signal the death of the brand we once knew. The first possibility, which we call the brand death scenario, carries a 40% probability. In this version of reality, the Australian tour is officially scrapped within the next 48 hours. Prince Harry remains in the United States, isolated within the walls of the Montecito mansion, facing the crushing weight of $30 million in debt and a potential federal investigation into his residency status. Meghan Markle, meanwhile, executes a strategic retreat to Canada, a territory where she feels a greater degree of control, to launch her lifestyle empire as a solo venture. The Sussex name remains only as a legal footnote on a mountain of debt. The second scenario is the final escape, with a 20% probability. This is the prodigal son path. Faced with total financial ruin and the loss of his American visa, Harry makes a desperate plea to King Charles III. He returns to the United Kingdom, surrendering his remaining titles and accepting a life of permanent silent exile in a remote royal estate in exchange for the crown settling his $30 million legal bill. Meghan Markle, in turn, files for a definitive divorce, walking away with 50% of their remaining liquid assets and the narrative of a woman who tried to save a man who couldn't be saved. However, our analysts have identified a third path as the most likely scenario, also with a 40% probability. In this cold-blooded maneuver, Meghan Markle proceeds to Australia alone. She fulfills the appearances as a solo global female entrepreneur, framing her visit as a mission of business and philanthropy while pointedly leaving Harry behind to face the London High Court. In this reality, Harry becomes a non-entity, a man without a family, without a fortune, and without a platform. He is left to face the perjury allegations and the costs-order death spiral, while Meghan rebrands herself as a survivor of the royal hurricane. This aligns perfectly with the digital scrubbing of Harry from her website that we witnessed at 6 a.m. today. But even as these scenarios play out, a piece of evidence has surfaced that renders all previous predictions obsolete. We have obtained a classified security report from a private terminal at Santa Barbara Airport. CCTV footage recorded at exactly 4 a.m. this morning shows a fleet of 3 black SUVs arriving at a secluded hangar. Meghan Markle was seen boarding a private Gulfstream jet. She was not accompanied by Harry. She was, however, accompanied by 2 of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in Hollywood, specializing in offshore asset protection. The flight manifest does not list Sydney, Australia, or London, England as the destination. The coordinates are for a jurisdiction that does not have a formal asset extradition treaty with the United Kingdom. Harry believes he is fighting a war for privacy and truth in a London courtroom, but he may not realize he is being left behind in a house that no longer belongs to him. The most chilling detail. Meghan was carrying a single reinforced silver briefcase, the same one that was reportedly seen being removed from the estate's primary vault just hours earlier. What is inside that briefcase? And where exactly is that plane landing? We are tracing the tail number as we speak. If you want to be the first to see the flight path and the contents of that silver file, you must act now. Subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications. Hit the like button to show you want this investigation to continue, and leave a comment with the words, "The Final Vault," to let us know you're ready for the truth. We will be back with a special breaking update as soon as that plane touches down. The endgame has begun. At exactly 9:00 a.m. on this 4th of April 2026, a digital tremor originated from the Royal Budget Office that has effectively ended the financial era of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. We are receiving reports of a leaked internal audit with a status code that has never been used against a member of the royal family until this very hour. The code reads, "Status repatriated." Next to it sits a staggering figure. $5 million. This is not a projected cut or a future plan. This is an immediate, surgical extraction of the residual security funds originally earmarked for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. The British monarchy has just executed what insiders are calling a cold spring maneuver. While the world was waking up, the Sovereign Grant Review for 2024 to 2025 was updated with a lethal new classification. Under the subsection for non-working entities, the Treasury and the Executive Committee for the Protection of Royalty and Public Figures, known as the RAVC, have officially activated the Fiscal Non-Utility Clause. In plain English, the Crown has decided that Harry and Meghan are no longer a financial asset worth protecting. This $5 million fund was not just sitting in a bank account. It was the final invisible shield that allowed the Sussexes to maintain their global stature. As of this morning, those funds have been diverted. They haven't just been frozen. They have been moved into the Public Works Fund controlled by the Prince of Wales. This is the ultimate institutional erasure. Before we go deeper into the encrypted documents that triggered this collapse, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel with notifications on. We are tracking this breaking story minute by minute, and you need to be the first to know when the next document drops. The reality of this strike is anchored in a secret meeting that took place only hours ago. At 11:45 a.m., inside the Duke of Lancaster room, specifically room 102 at Clarence House, a high-level courier finalized a digital transfer. A senior palace aide reportedly stood over the terminal as the encrypted PDF was sent directly to the Sussex legal team's headquarters in Montecito. We have obtained a reconstruction of the dialogue that occurred in that room. One official was heard asking if there would be any window for an appeal. The response from the lead auditor was chillingly brief. He reportedly stated, "The king has signed the warrant. The Treasury has verified the lack of utility. The account is zero." This is the authority staircase in action. First, you have the Sovereign Grant Review, the definitive legal record of royal spending. Second, you have the combined weight of the Treasury and the RAVC, the two most powerful administrative bodies in the United Kingdom. And third, you have the activation of a mechanism designed for wartime logistics. By classifying the Sussex Security Fund as a fiscal non-utility, the palace is arguing that spending money on Harry and Meghan provides zero return to the British taxpayer. The immediate consequence of this 9 a.m. leak is a total security blackout for the couple. Without that $5 million cushion, the private security firms in California are now looking at a client whose royal credit line has just been incinerated. Imagine the scene at the Montecito estate right now. The frantic calls to the bank. The realization that the encrypted PDF in their inbox isn't just a letter, it's a financial guillotine. If you believe the king is right to protect the taxpayer, or if you think this move is too brutal, tell us in the comments right now. Use the word repatriated so we know you're following the money trail. This 4th of April will be remembered as the day the House of Windsor stopped paying for the privilege of being attacked. The timing is a masterpiece of bureaucratic warfare. By acting on the first Monday of the new fiscal month, the palace has ensured that Harry and Meghan have no time to reorganize their commercial assets before the next security bill is due. The drawbridge isn't just up. The moat has been emptied, and the royal umbrella has been burned to ash. The message from room 102 is deafening. The bank is closed, the guard is gone, and the Sussexes are officially on their own in a very dangerous world. We are just getting started on this investigative deep dive. Stay with us as we uncover the secret 3-word response from Prince William that sealed this fate. To understand the cold reality of today's $5 million extraction, you have to realize that this wasn't a sudden burst of anger from a frustrated father. This was a clinical, 6-month operation designed to systematically dismantle the Sussex connection to the crown. Every move was calculated. Every date was a trap. This is the timeline of the ultimate royal erasure. It began on the 25th of December, 2023. While the rest of the world watched the traditional royal walk to church at Sandringham, a desperate letter was reportedly routed through an encrypted channel from Montecito to the king's private office. Prince Harry was requesting a private audience, not as a duke, but as a son. He wanted to discuss the security crisis facing his family. But the response from the king's private secretary was a masterclass in bureaucratic rejection. The reply reportedly stated, "The king's schedule is at capacity. Logistical arrangements for non-working members remain under review. No holiday greetings. No fatherly warmth. Just a calendar that had no room for a spare. By the 15th of February 2024, the battlefield shifted to the High Court in London. This was the legal permission slip the palace needed. Harry lost his high-stakes battle to regain state-funded police protection. The judge's ruling was definitive. The RAFC's decision to remove automatic security is legally sound. At that moment the trap was set. If the highest court in the land agreed that Harry was no longer a protected entity, the $5 million residual fund sitting in the Royal Budget Office suddenly had no legal reason to exist. On the 10th of March 2024, behind the heavy oak doors of Buckingham Palace, King Charles officially signed off on the spring budget restructuring. This wasn't a public event. There were no cameras. But insiders reveal that tucked away in the annex of that document was a clause allowing for the repatriation of dormant security assets. The king wasn't just managing money. He was signing the warrant for Harry's financial isolation. As the new fiscal year dawned on April 1, 2024, the audit team at the Treasury moved in. The $5 million fund was officially flagged. But the final lethal decision didn't happen in an office. It happened just yesterday, on the 3rd of April, during a high-tension 15-minute walk in the gardens of Frogmore, Windsor. Prince William and King Charles. No aides, no witnesses, just the king and his heir. Sources indicate the conversation was focused on one objective: closing the Sussex security loop. William's logic was reportedly impenetrable. He was heard telling a senior official later that afternoon, "The institution cannot be a shield for those who choose to live outside of it." And that brings us to today, April 4th. At 9 a.m. the digital execution was finalized. The status of that fund was changed to repatriated. The royal umbrella that had protected Harry for 38 years has been shredded. As of this hour, the Sussexes are officially without a state-backed financial safety net. But as the money flows back into Prince William's Public Works Fund, a new question is surfacing in London. Why did a senior palace official leave a one-page memorandum on William's desk titled, "The Third Phase"? And what happens to Harry and Meghan when the private security firms in Hollywood realize their royal credit line has just been incinerated? The timeline is moving faster than anyone expected. To understand how a king legally strips $5 million from his own son, you have to look past the family drama and into the cold gears of a mechanism known as the sovereign's clawback. This is not a personal choice made over tea. It is a calculated administrative execution involving the highest levels of British governance. The palace didn't just take the money. They used the very laws of the British Constitution to justify the seizure. The first phase of this operation was a quiet, high-stakes reclassification. Inside the grey-walled offices of the Home Office and the RAVC, Harry and Meghan were officially moved from the category of protected royals to high-risk private citizens. This linguistic shift is devastating. By removing the royal designation, the palace effectively stripped them of their status as an asset to the state. In the eyes of the Crown's accountants, they are no longer representatives of the British people. They are now simply two expensive individuals living in a foreign land with no institutional utility. Once the classification was changed, the palace activated the lethal Protocol 5. This is a rarely invoked clause within the sovereign grant's financial bylaws. It states that if a recipient does not perform official state duties for a continuous period of 24 months, any residual funds allocated for their logistical support must be repatriated to the Crown. The logic is simple and brutal. No service, no subsidy. By waiting until this exact moment in April 2026, the King's legal team ensured that the 24-month window was not just closed, but locked. This Protocol 5 activation is designed to protect the Treasury from public backlash, framing the seizure not as a punishment, but as a mandatory fiscal requirement to prevent the misuse of public wealth. The final nail in the coffin came from the Treasury itself. Earlier this morning, a senior official at the Ministry of Finance reportedly signed a veto of administrative redundancy. This document officially declared the $5 million security fund surplus to requirements. The minister argued that since Harry is no longer a working royal, providing him with a state-funded security cushion constitutes a waste of institutional resources. With that single signature, the funds were instantly transferred back into the Prince of Wales's public infrastructure accounts. The consequences for the Sussexes are catastrophic. By losing this fund, Harry hasn't just lost cash. He has lost the legal bridge that allowed him to access British state intelligence. Private security firms in California, no matter how elite, do not have access to the Met Police's global threat databases or the UK's diplomatic protection network. They are now flying blind. Furthermore, the financial burn rate at the Montecito estate is about to skyrocket. Insiders estimate that maintaining their current level of protection without state support will cost upwards of $2.5 million per year. Without that $5 million cushion, the Sussexes are looking at a financial death loop. They must sell more content to pay for the security they need because they sold that very content in the first place. The king hasn't just taken their money. He has forced them to drain their own commercial earnings just to stay safe. But there is a darker layer to this mechanism. If the king has officially declared these funds redundant, what does that mean for Harry's remaining titles? A leaked memo from the Prince of Wales's office suggests that the clawback is only the beginning. There is a specific name for the next phase of this operation, one that involves a total severance of the Sussex brand from the British monarchy. Why did a senior aide at Kensington Palace just request a full audit of the Sussex trademark? The financial guillotine has fallen, but the institutional erasure is far from over. While the world focuses on the $5 million extraction from the royal ledgers, the most devastating strike was delivered not in a boardroom, but across a single sheet of paper inside Kensington Palace. This morning at 10:15 a.m., a red memorandum was placed on the mahogany desk of the Prince of Wales. This specific folder color is reserved for matters of high sovereign importance. Inside was a formal request from a senior royal mediator, suggesting a grace period for Prince Harry and his family to reside at Sandringham for the upcoming winter season as a gesture of reconciliation. Witnesses within the palace walls describe a scene of absolute finality. Prince William did not hesitate. He did not ask for a consultation with his advisors. He picked up a fountain pen and in sharp blue ink, wrote exactly 3 words across the bottom of the proposal. Not this lifetime. Those 3 words represent the end of the House of Windsor as Harry once knew it. This isn't just a personal rejection between brothers. It is a strategic excommunication. By writing those words, the heir to the throne has signaled that the olive branch has been replaced by an iron gate. The grace period is over. The spare is no longer part of the inventory. This leads us to the palace's most lethal PR strategy, the information vacuum. For years, the public has been used to a back-and-forth media war. But as of April 4, 2026, the Crown has shifted tactics. They are no longer engaging in the Sussex narrative. They are not issuing denials or clarifications. Instead, they are weaponizing silence and administrative barriers. By turning Harry into a titled stranger, the palace is effectively neutralizing his commercial value. In Hollywood, a prince who cannot get a room at Sandringham is no longer a prince. He is a liability. The Crown is letting the Sussex brand suffocate in the vacuum they've created. The real-world impact of this silence is already fracturing the fortress in Montecito. Reports are surfacing this very hour that a trusted long-term member of Harry's private security detail, a man who has been at his side since his departure from the UK, has officially tendered his resignation today, April 4. The reason cited in hushed circles is a lack of long-term financial certainty regarding the security fund. Think about the gravity of that move. For a high-level security professional, their primary job is to assess risk. If Harry's own protectors are walking away because they fear the Sussexes can no longer afford the multi-million-dollar annual bill for their safety, the crisis is no longer theoretical. It is existential. The $5 million seizure has created a panic that yoga and California sunshine cannot fix. The shield is cracking from the inside out. As the sun sets over London today, the contrast is chilling. In Kensington, the Prince of Wales is moving forward with a streamlined, disciplined monarchy that has no room for those who attack it. In Montecito, the silence from the palace is louder than any shouting match. But there is one detail from that 3-word memorandum that hasn't been discussed. Why did William date his signature 24 hours in advance? And what does he know about the Phase 3 announcement scheduled for tomorrow morning? The king may have the crown, but the Prince of Wales clearly holds the keys to the future, and those keys have just been turned in the lock. The real war for the future of the Sussex brand is no longer being fought in a courtroom or through explosive interviews. It is being fought in the shadows of public perception, using a lethal strategy of image starvation. While the world was distracted by the $5 million seizure, a more subtle tactical maneuver was observed just hours ago in Montecito. Meghan Markle was spotted exiting a private business meeting, dressed in a luxury European designer ensemble worth thousands of dollars. But to the trained eye of a royal observer, the most important detail was not what she was wearing, but what was missing. For the first time since their departure from the United Kingdom, the Duchess was seen without her signature armored motorcade. There was no lead security vehicle, no tailing SUV, and no high-level executive protection detail clearing the path. This is the shadow war in its most visible form. The palace understands that royalty is 90% perception. By stripping away the state-funded security and the logistical aura of a global monarch, the crown is effectively demoting the Sussexes in the eyes of the global elite. Without the motorcade, without the Ring of Steel, the Duchess of Sussex looks like just another wealthy celebrity in a town full of them. The royal dust that made them so attractive to major corporations is being systematically washed away. When the palace removes the protection, they are removing the power. But the administrative isolation goes even deeper. A high-level source within the Duchy of Cornwall, the vast estate now controlled by Prince William, has confirmed a total collapse of personal communication. In the past, despite the tension, there were still back-channel WhatsApp messages and occasional personal calls between Prince Harry and King Charles. As of this morning, April 4th, those channels have been surgically cauterized. The source reveals that every direct contact attempt from Montecito is now being diverted to a general legal email address managed by the Sovereign Secretariat. There is no more Dad. There is only the Office of the King. When Harry attempts to reach out about the $5 million fund or the safety of his children, he is met with a sterile, automated-style response. Please refer all inquiries to the legal department. This is a master stroke of institutional warfare. By turning a father-son relationship into a solicitor-client dynamic, the palace has removed Harry's primary leverage, his emotional connection to the king. Now, a ticking clock has been placed on the Montecito estate. We are entering a critical 48-hour window that could change everything. Inside information suggests that the Sussex's primary private security contract in the United States is up for its quarterly renewal. Usually, this renewal is backed by the promise of the Royal Security Fund. But with that $5 million cushion officially repatriated to London, the private firm is reportedly demanding immediate, upfront payment in full. Harry and Meghan now face a brutal deadline. In 48 hours, they must provide proof of funds or a fresh line of credit to maintain their 24/7 protection detail. If they cannot, the Montecito mansion, the very symbol of their independence, will essentially become an unprotected ghost house in a high-threat environment. The palace knows this. They are watching the clock. They are waiting to see if the Sussexes will be forced to drain their personal savings, or if they will finally be driven to the negotiating table on the Crown's terms. The spring maneuver is not just about money. It is about creating a situation so precarious that the Sussexes have no choice but to fold. The question now isn't if the palace will respond to Harry's next move. It's whether there will be any move left to make when the clock hits zero. The dust from this morning's $5 million seizure is beginning to settle, but the silence from London is far from peaceful. It is tactical. As we look at the wreckage of the Sussex Security Fund on this 4th of April 2026, the question shifts from why did this happen to what is left. To answer that, we have to look at the three distinct scenarios now unfolding within the war rooms of Kensington and Montecito. The first scenario, though it carries a 30% probability, is the absolute financial collapse of the Sussex brand. We are calling this the security bankruptcy. Without the $5 million state cushion, Harry and Meghan are facing an immediate fiscal death loop. If they cannot secure a massive new commercial deal within the next 90 days, they may be forced to do the unthinkable, put the Montecito estate on the market. Selling the fortress wouldn't just be a move. It would be a public admission of defeat. It would signal to the world that they can no longer afford to live the royal life they claimed was their right. The second path, at a 40% probability, is a desperate media counterstrike. Sources indicate that a Plan B documentary pitch is already being circulated among streaming giants. The narrative, a direct accusation that King Charles is deliberately endangering the lives of his American grandchildren by withdrawing protection. This is the victimhood card played one last time. But the risk here is immense. In a 2026 media landscape, public fatigue with the royal feud is at an all-time high. If they attack the king during his own health challenges, the Sussexes risk a total cultural backlash that could permanently end their influence in the United States. However, the most realistic scenario, standing at a 60% probability, is a deadly silence. This is the Prince William doctrine. William, who now holds the keys to the royal coffers, has zero interest in a public shouting match. Instead, he is expected to use the momentum of Protocol 5 to move toward the final phase of institutional erasure. Reports suggest that during the upcoming parliamentary session, the palace will quietly support a private member's bill that allows for the removal of the Duke and Duchess titles based on the same administrative redundancy used to seize the security funds today. The goal is simple: to make Harry and Meghan irrelevant by stripping away the last of their royal currency while they are too financially drained to fight back in court. But as the shadows lengthen over Windsor today, one detail has emerged that has left even the most seasoned royal correspondents speechless. In the physical envelope delivered to the Sussex legal team this morning, the one containing the news of the $5 million seizure, there was a second, smaller document. It was a formal invoice, printed on royal stationery, with a balance of exactly $0. On the surface, it looks like a clerical error. But in the world of high-stakes royal protocol, nothing is an accident. Is this $0 invoice the ultimate institutional insult, a way of saying that Harry's value to the crown is now non-existent? Or is it a secret matma, a private message from the king to his son that bypasses the legal teams? Some insiders believe this $0 code contains a hidden offer for a return to the UK, but under conditions that Meghan Markle is not permitted to see. The clock is ticking on that 48-hour security deadline. The bank is closed, the guard is gone, and the mystery of the $0 invoice is just beginning to unravel. What do you think the $0 code means? Is it a final goodbye or a secret trapdoor? Tell us your theories in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this investigation essential, hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated on the $0 code files. Don't look away, because the next document we've obtained will change everything you think you know about Prince William's endgame. We will decode the $0 mystery in our very next deep dive. Stay tuned. The illusion of the Sussex global empire is not just cracking, it is shattering in real time. This is a breaking news update for the morning of April 4th, 2026. While the world remembers the $100 million deals and the private jets of 2020, the reality of this morning is far more humiliating. We have obtained details of a leaked internal communication that confirms the Duchess of Sussex is no longer being chased by Hollywood. Instead, she is the one doing the chasing, and she is doing it with a level of desperation that was once unthinkable. It started with an email sent at exactly 2:15 p.m. on March 15th from a senior staffer at the Archwell office. The subject line read, "Priority collaboration, proposal for the Duchess's appearance." This email was not sent to Disney. It was not sent to Paramount or Warner Brothers. It was sent to the assistant of an Australian podcast host named Gemma, a woman currently embroiled in a massive tax scandal with the Australian government. Think about the sheer scale of this collapse. Only 6 years ago, every major studio on the planet was knocking on their door, offering blank checks. Today, the Duchess is engaging in what industry insiders call a reverse negotiation. In a reported exchange between an Archwell representative and Gemma's team, the narrative was staggering. The Archwell staffer reportedly said, and I quote, "The Duchess is willing to waive her usual 7-figure appearance fee in exchange for full editorial control and a guaranteed headline slot." Gemma's team, sensing the desperation, didn't jump at the offer. Their reported response was cold. "We are currently reviewing our guest list based on local market viability." Let that sink in. Meghan Markle, a woman who once shared a stage with the late Queen Elizabeth, was put on a waiting list by a struggling podcast host in Australia. If you find this shift in power as shocking as I do, please hit that like button right now and subscribe. It helps us keep these investigations going against the Sussex PR machine. Comment below with the word "exposed" if you think the Hollywood era is officially over for them. The physical reality of this flop era is even more grim. On April 2nd, 2026, 2 days ago, hotel staff at the Langham in Sydney confirmed that a small advance team for Meghan arrived to inspect the venue. They weren't looking at the Grand Ballroom or the penthouse suites. They were directed to Ballroom 3. To put this in perspective, Ballroom 3 is a tiny 200 square meter space. It is the kind of room you book for a local dental convention, a mid-tier cosmetics launch, or a regional sales meeting. An eyewitness at the hotel described the scene as uncomfortably tense. The advance team reportedly complained about the lack of a private service entrance, to which the hotel management simply replied that the room didn't justify special security protocols. Meghan Markle is heading to a room designed for teeth-whitening seminars, and she had to beg for the privilege of being there. How did we get from the pinnacle of Netflix to the depths of a Sydney conference room? It is the result of what experts call brand fatigue. Americans have had 6 years of the same complaints, the same stories, and the same lack of substance. The Australian public is even less forgiving. Outside the Sydney Convention Centre this morning, posters have already appeared with the slogan, "Not Our Duchess." The locals are outraged that a woman claiming to be a global humanitarian is partnering with a host accused of tax evasion just to stay relevant. Harry and Meghan have squandered the opportunity of a lifetime. They traded royal duty for a celebrity status that they lacked the talent to maintain. Now the bills are coming due. The inventory for Meghan's lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, is reportedly sitting in warehouses, unmoved, because the Sussex spark has turned into a Sussex scorch. This Australian trip is not a victory lap. It is a salvage mission. Meghan is trying to prove she can still draw a crowd, even if she has to pay for the stage herself. But as we look at the empty seats and the mounting legal issues surrounding her partners, the question isn't if she will flop, it's how much further she can fall. Stay with us as we move into part 2, where we break down the secret legal ultimatum King Charles has just sent to Harry regarding their return to the United Kingdom. You do not want to miss the specific terms of that document. Hit the notification bell so you are the first to know when the next file drops. This is the end of the Sussex era as we know it. To understand the desperation unfolding in Sydney this morning, we must look at the data. This is not a sudden downturn. It is a 6-year trajectory of a brand that believed it was too big to fail. The forensic timeline of the Sussex decline reveals a series of calculated risks that have all resulted in the same outcome: total irrelevance. The peak was September 2020. From their mansion in Santa Barbara, Harry and Meghan announced a staggering $100 million deal with Netflix. At that moment, they held a position of absolute phantom power in Hollywood. They were the most sought-after content creators on the planet, despite having no track record of production. They were selling a dream and the industry bought it. But dreams require maintenance. By December 2022, the release of their self-titled documentary achieved record-breaking viewership, but it triggered the first major shift in public sentiment. The professional whining narrative took root. Audiences began to notice a pattern, a lack of vision compensated by an abundance of grievance. The true credibility fracture occurred in January 2023 with the global release of the memoir Spare. This was the moment the mask slipped. The world was treated to intimate unnecessary details, from frostbitten anatomy to teenage escapades, that effectively turned a prince of the realm into a late-night talk show punchline. It was at this exact moment that Jack Royston of Newsweek officially declared the beginning of the flop era. The prestige was gone, replaced by a morbid curiosity that was rapidly fading into boredom. The downward spiral accelerated in May 2024 during their high-profile trip to Nigeria. While the Sussex PR machine labeled it a royal tour in all but name, the investigative media focused on something far more sinister: the African Park scandal. Reports of horrific human rights abuses at a charity where Harry served on the board were met with a deafening silence from Montecito. The hypocrisy was laid bare. One investigative journalist was quoted saying, "You cannot lecture the world on compassion while ignoring the cries for help in your own backyard." By October 2025, the financial consequences became undeniable. In Los Angeles, insiders revealed that Meghan's lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, was facing a catastrophic dead stock crisis. Estimates suggested that 80% of the initial inventory remained sitting in climate-controlled warehouses. This Sussex spark had failed to ignite consumer interest. Without a Netflix renewal and with massive overheads, the cash flow crisis became a reality. This was the catalyst for the Australian pivot. Fast forward to January 2026. The Australian Tax Office in Canberra issued a formal notice of investigation into the financial contributions surrounding the Her Best Life event. The host, Gemma, saw her corporate accounts frozen. This is the entity Meghan Markle chose to align herself with. It wasn't a choice made out of shared values. It was a choice made out of a lack of options. This brings us to the present, the morning of April 4, 2026. In a stunning departure from her usual demands for private aviation, Meghan Markle is reportedly landing in Sydney on a commercial flight. There were no red carpets. There were no diplomatic motorcades. Instead, an estimated 300 local protesters have gathered at the arrivals terminal, holding signs that question the Duchess's integrity. One witness at the airport described the atmosphere as icy. The local sentiment has shifted from curiosity to open hostility. As Meghan prepares to step into that 200-square-meter room at the Sydney Convention Centre, she is walking into a trap of her own making. But as the Australian government prepares to scrutinise her business ties, a far more dangerous development is brewing back in London. There are whispers of a classified document currently sitting on the desk of the Home Secretary. A document that could end Harry's legal battles in a way he never anticipated. What does the character test under Australian law mean for a duchess in distress? The answers are starting to emerge from the shadows. Beyond the flashing lights of Sydney Harbour and the curated Instagram posts, there is a clinical, three-step operation at work. This is what industry insiders are calling the rebranding grift. It is a calculated mechanism designed to keep a failing brand on life support by exploiting vulnerable partners and weaponizing personal tragedy. As we monitor the situation at the Sydney Convention Centre this morning, the architecture of this deception is becoming visible. The first phase of the operation is what experts term parasitic branding. The strategy is simple. Identify a host that is already in crisis. In this case, the target was Gemma and her Best Life platform. Gemma was the perfect candidate, a woman facing massive tax scrutiny from the Australian government and a collapsing podcast listenership. The proposal from the Sussex camp was presented as a lifeline. According to a reported leak from the events planning committee, the pitch was, the Duchess will appear for free, providing the prestige needed to settle your creditors. But there was a hidden isolation clause. In exchange for her presence, Meghan demanded absolute ownership of all raw footage and broadcast rights. This wasn't a charitable appearance. It was a content mining expedition. Meghan wasn't there to help Gemma. She was there to use Gemma's stage to film high-quality humanitarian clips she could later sell to a secondary streaming platform or use for her own digital relaunch. Once the host was secured, the operation moved to step 2, the scarcity myth. For weeks, headlines in Sussex-friendly tabloids screamed that VIP tickets were selling for a staggering $3,000 Australian and were nearly sold out. This is a classic PR tactic used to create a false sense of market value for a brand that is actually in freefall. The reality on the ground in Sydney tells a different story. Internal manifests for Ballroom 3 show that a significant portion of those $3,000 seats were never actually sold. Instead, they were quietly comped, distributed for free to local influencers and specific mom groups under strict non-disclosure agreements. The goal was to ensure that when the cameras rolled, the room looked full of high-paying devotees. It is an elaborate shell game. Create a high price tag to signal luxury, then fill the seats with seat fillers to avoid the embarrassment of an empty room. The final, and perhaps most cynical phase is the emotional firewall. This is the step where the Duchess uses what critics call strategic vulnerability. Whenever a journalist or a government auditor begins to ask difficult questions about the $500,000 consultancy fee paid by Archwell to the event organizers, the narrative shifts instantly. During a reported pre-event briefing, when a local reporter asked about the tax implications of the partnership, the response was redirected toward Meghan's personal history of grief and the healing journey of the attendees. By centering the conversation on sensitive topics like miscarriage and clinical depression, they create a shield. To question the finances becomes synonymous with bullying a grieving woman. It is a psychological trap. Use genuine human tragedies as a barrier to prevent any investigation into the actual business mechanics of the Sussex machine. As the doors to Ballroom 3 open today, the facade is under immense pressure. The Australian public is not as easily manipulated as the Montecito Circle. With the Australian Tax Office reportedly observing the event's inventory of assets, the rebranding grift is facing its first real-world stress test. But even as the seats are filled with curated guests, a larger shadow is looming. In London, a high-ranking official at the Home Office has reportedly requested a transcript of every word spoken on that Sydney stage today. The character test for Harry's future in the Commonwealth may depend on what is revealed when the emotional firewall finally collapses. The true cost of this free appearance is about to be calculated. As the morning sun hits the glass of the Sydney Convention Centre, the conversation has shifted away from the Duchess's wardrobe and toward a set of documents that could end the Sussex residency in the Commonwealth for good. We are no longer talking about hurt feelings or royal rifts. We are talking about the authority staircase, a series of escalating legal threats that are closing in on both Harry and Meghan from two different continents. At the base of this staircase lies Federal Court Warrant Number 882. This is a specific high-level mandate issued by the Australian Federal Court that has sent shockwaves through the Sydney business community this morning. The warrant demands an immediate clarification of a $500,000 consultancy fee, transferred directly from the Archwell Foundation in the United States to the private entity managing Gemma's, Her Best Life event. The mechanism of this investigation is clinical. Under Australian law, a tax-exempt charity cannot funnel $500,000 into a private, for-profit event organizer without a clear, documented service provided. The Australian Tax Office is reportedly looking for evidence of what, exactly, that $500,000 purchased. Was it truly consultancy, or was it a pay-to-play scheme designed to launder Meghan's reputation while providing Gemma with the liquidity to settle her mounting tax debts? If the paperwork does not align with the reality of the event in Ballroom 3, we are looking at a case of cross-border financial irregularities. But as Meghan faces the auditors in Sydney, Prince Harry is facing a credibility implosion in London. In a joint investigative report published by Newsweek and The Times, a devastating contradiction has been unearthed regarding Harry's recent court testimony. Under oath, the prince claimed he had no idea that Charlotte Griffith of the Daily Mail was a journalist when he engaged with her. He testified that as soon as he discovered her profession, he severed all contact immediately. The digital trail tells a different story. Forensic logs from Facebook Messenger, now part of the public record, show a 14-week continuous dialogue between the prince and the journalist. Even more damaging is the alias used. Harry reportedly communicated under the pseudonym Mr. Mischief. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a deliberate, months-long correspondence that directly contradicts his sworn statement to the High Court. The legal ceiling for this behavior is perjury. In the United Kingdom, lying under oath is not a public relations error. It is a criminal offense that carries the potential for significant legal penalties. The Mr. Mischief logs have effectively dismantled Harry's narrative as the victim of the press. Instead, they paint a picture of a man who was an active participant in the very media games he claims to despise. This leads us to the final, most dangerous level of the staircase. The character test. Under Section 501 of the Australian Migration Act, any non-citizen can have their visa cancelled or be banned from entry if they do not pass a character test. This test specifically looks at associating with individuals or organizations involved in criminal or fraudulent conduct. If the Australian investigation into the $500,000 Archwell payment concludes that the Her Best Life event was a vehicle for tax evasion or financial fraud, Meghan Markle's legal status in Australia becomes untenable. She would not just be an unpopular visitor, she would be legally classified as a person of bad character under Australian immigration law. This would trigger a permanent ban on her entering the country, the very country she is currently trying to conquer from a 200-square-meter conference room. The walls are closing in. While Harry navigates the perjury trap in London, Meghan is walking a financial tightrope in Sydney. But even as these two legal fires burn, an even more explosive revelation is surfacing. A third party, a former high-ranking employee of the Her Best Life team, has reportedly reached out to the Australian authorities with a recorded conversation. What was said in that private briefing before the Sydney event began? The shadows are getting longer. As the clocks in Sydney strike midday on this 4th of April 2026, the data scientists and PR strategists are running the numbers on what happens next. The Sussex brand is no longer a monolith. It is a fractured entity navigating a scenario tree, where every branch leads to a significant loss of status. We have analysed the 3 most probable outcomes for this Australian mission, and the results are chilling for anyone still holding on to the hope of a Sussex comeback. The first branch of the matrix is what analysts are calling the Sydney siege. In this scenario, which currently holds a 45% probability, the tension outside the Langham Hotel reaches a breaking point. We are already seeing the early signs. Local protesters have effectively blocked the main entrance, and the Sydney police have had to double their presence. If this escalates, the Her Best Life event will be cancelled by the City Council on the grounds of public safety. This would be the final blow. If the event is cancelled and the Australian Tax Office moves forward with its prosecution of Gemma, Meghan Markle would find herself empty-handed, without the content she came to mine, and potentially facing a formal deportation order. In this scenario, she becomes persona non grata in the Commonwealth, a legal label that is almost impossible to erase. The second branch is the eerie silence. This is the middle ground scenario, and in many ways, it is the one the Duchess fears most. Here, the event proceeds in that 200-square-meter room, but the world's media simply looks away. No major network picks up the clips. No A-list celebrities send messages of support. The room is filled with paid seat fillers who offer polite, rehearsed applause. This is the quiet death of a brand. It is the transition from being a global icon to becoming an insignificant footnote in the history of celebrity influencers. When the world stops hating you and simply stops caring, the Sussex business model, which relies on high-octane drama, collapses into a void. However, the third and most likely scenario is what we call the pay-to-talk strategy. In this version of reality, the Sussex PR machine has already pre-purchased the outcome. We are expecting to see a series of exclusive photos in a handful of lower-tier tabloids over the next 48 hours, showing Meghan smiling in front of a carefully angled crowd to suggest a roaring success. But look closely at the fine print. These are not news reports. They are sponsored content. The reality of the pay-to-talk strategy is that it serves as a smokescreen for a tactical retreat. Reports from Montecito suggest that even as Meghan is on stage in Sydney, the couple is preparing a permanent move to a secluded estate in Portugal. Why Portugal? Because as the financial investigations by the IRS in the United States and the ATO in Australia intensify, the Algarve exile offers a strategic layer of distance from the authorities. They are buying the appearance of success in Sydney to cover the reality of a global retreat. The fundamental reason for this collapse is the total loss of bargaining power. In 2020, Harry and Meghan were producers of cultural capital. Today, they are mere consumers of it. They have moved from a position where studios paid them millions just for the possibility of a project, to a position where they must pay for their own stage and their own headlines. They are no longer the ones being chased. They are the ones writing checks to stay in the conversation. But as the pay-to-talk strategy unfolds in the coming hours, a new variable has entered the matrix. An anonymous source within the Australian Federal Police has just confirmed that a material witness has come forward with evidence regarding the $500,000 Archwell payment. This witness is not from the public. They are from inside the inner circle. The shadow of the law is moving faster than the PR machine. What happens when the cameras turn off in Ballroom 3? The answer is waiting at the departures terminal. At this very hour, as the flashbulbs pop in a small 200-square-meter conference room in Sydney, the Duchess of Sussex is performing for a curated audience, unaware that the ground beneath her feet has already shifted. While Meghan Markle is busy pitching her brand and sharing rehearsed anecdotes of resilience, 5,000 miles away in London, a silent and devastating move has been made. At exactly 10:30 a.m. GMT on this 4th of April 2026, King Charles III reportedly signed a document that serves as the final sovereign decree regarding the Sussex's future. This is the Royal Warrant Revision of 2026. For years, the question of their titles has been a matter of public debate, but this morning, it became a matter of automatic legal forfeiture. The specific provision in this new warrant is surgical in its precision. It states that any member of the royal family, regardless of their current status as a working royal, will face the automatic revocation of all styles and titles if they participate in commercial activities that profit from, or are associated with, entities currently under official legal or financial investigation by a Commonwealth government. The irony is staggering. Meghan Markle believed this Australian trip was her lifeline, a way to bypass Hollywood's cold shoulder and prove her market value. She begged for this stage, she negotiated a free appearance to gain content rights, and she aligned herself with an organizer who is the primary target of the Australian Tax Office. By stepping onto that stage today in Ballroom 3, Meghan didn't just join a conference, she walked directly into a sovereign trap that she set for herself. The mechanism is now in motion. Because the Her Best Life event is officially categorized by the ATO as a high-risk entity, due to the ongoing tax evasion probe, Meghan's participation, and specifically the $500,000 consultancy fee paid by Archewell, has triggered the automatic review clause of the new royal warrant. In the eyes of the British Crown, the Duchess is now a commercial partner to a suspected financial fraudster. The titles are no longer a birthright. They have become a liability that the King has finally found the legal mechanism to sever. This Australian mission was meant to be a salvage operation for the Sussex brand. Instead, it has become a tactical suicide. The desperation to be heard, to be seen, and to be relevant has blinded them to the legal minefield that Buckingham Palace has been carefully laying for the last 24 months. The flop era has transitioned into something far more permanent, total disenfranchisement. But there is one final piece of evidence that changes everything. We have received a high-level confirmation that at 3 p.m. yesterday, a confidential dispatch was delivered to the Australian Tax Office headquarters in Canberra. It did not come from a lawyer or a PR firm. It was a palace communiqué, marked with the highest level of sovereign priority. What was in that secret letter? Did the Kung Dain provide the ATO with the exact banking coordinates of the Archewell transfer? Did they offer evidence that contradicts Meghan's charitable narrative? The truth about this letter, and the specific evidence it contains against the Sydney organisers, will be fully declassified in our investigative update tomorrow morning. The Sussex era is over. The only question remaining is how the world will react when the Duchess becomes simply Meghan by the time the sun sets in London today. If you found this investigation essential, hit the like button right now. Your support is the only way we can continue to dig into the stories the mainstream media is afraid to touch. Subscribe and turn on all notifications. You cannot afford to miss our report tomorrow morning on this secret letter from London. Comment below with the word justice if you believe the title should have been removed years ago. Thank you for watching. The final file drops in exactly 24 hours. Stay tuned.
3:14 a.m. London time, April 1st, 2026. While the rest of the United Kingdom slept, a single encrypted email bypassed the standard firewalls of the royal household, landing directly in the high-priority inbox of the King's private secretary. The location? Room 1844, Buckingham Palace, the very room where the most sensitive diplomatic cables in the world are processed. The sender? A private server registered to an estate in Montecito, California. On the surface, the subject line read like a concerned son checking in on a sick father, family update and health inquiries. But as the digital file was opened, the mask of filial piety vanished. This was not a get-well-soon card. This was a legal nuclear bomb. Prince Harry has just pressed the button on a high-stakes ultimatum that has sent the monarchy into an absolute tailspin. What you are witnessing is a calculated strike, timed with the precision of a military operation. As we speak, King Charles III is fighting the most grueling battle of his life against a persistent and aggressive cancer. Insiders reveal that 3:14 a.m. is not just a random timestamp. It is the exact hour the King typically begins his most painful daily medical treatments. A window of time when his physical and emotional defenses are at their lowest. The message from Prince Harry was blunt. According to palace sources who have seen the briefing, the Duke of Sussex has issued a formal demand for what is known as Category 1 armed police protection. His terms are non-negotiable. Grant him and his family the elite, taxpayer-funded security bubble for the upcoming summer events in June, or the King will never lay eyes on his grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, again. Imagine the scene inside the palace. The private secretary reportedly turned to a senior aide and whispered, "He is holding the grandchildren for ransom while his father is in the treatment room. Is there no line he won't cross?" This isn't just a family rift anymore. This is a breach of the highest order. To understand why this is so devastating, we have to look at the 2026 Ravec files. For years, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee has maintained that because Harry is no longer a working royal, he is not entitled to the Iron Dome of British police protection. But Harry is now weaponizing the King's vulnerability to bypass the law. He isn't asking the government, he is demanding his father overrule the Home Office. If you are as shocked as we are by this revelation, take a moment right now to hit that like button. It helps us stay independent as we bring you the truths the mainstream media is too terrified to broadcast. If you believe the King deserves peace during his recovery, type dignity in the comments below. We read every single one. The technical mechanics of this move are chilling. This is how the Montecito strategy works. Step 1. Leverage the King's health. Step 2. Claim that the current security at royal estates like Sandringham or Windsor is insufficient, despite them being the most fortified private residences on Earth. Step 3. Trigger a public relations war by painting himself as the victim of a cold, uncaring institution. The narrative being pushed by the Sussex PR machine is that Harry desperately wants to support his father, but the mean men in grey suits won't keep his children safe. It is a masterclass in gaslighting. Behind the scenes, the reality is much darker. We have unpicked the secret briefings, and they show that Harry has been offered use of the royal security bubble at every major estate. He has rejected every single one. Why? Because the royal bubble comes with accountability. It means no private film crews for upcoming documentaries. It means following the King's schedule, not the Montecito agenda. By demanding his own independent, state-funded army, Harry is seeking a status he never earned and a level of control that threatens the very sovereignty of the crown. This story is breaking by the minute. Before we reveal the secret documents from the late Queen's private archive that predicted this very betrayal, make sure you are subscribed with all notifications turned on. You are watching the most in-depth breakdown of the royal power struggle on YouTube. And our next update on Prince William's retaliatory ice-out policy is one you cannot afford to miss. Now, let's go deeper into the archives. To understand why King Charles feels this betrayal so acutely today, we have to look at the blueprint of this emotional blackmail, a pattern that began years ago and arguably shortened the life of Queen Elizabeth II. This isn't just about bodyguards. This is about who owns the future of the British monarchy. Let's look at the evidence. To understand the sheer audacity of this ultimatum, we have to look at the battlefield Harry has chosen: the 2026 RAVEC security dispute. For those outside the United Kingdom, RAVEC is the high-level committee within the Home Office that decides who gets taxpayer-funded, armed police protection. When Harry stepped down as a working royal, he lost his automatic right to this Iron Dome of security, and ever since, he has been obsessed with getting it back. But here is the chilling mechanism of what insiders are now calling the security ransom. The mechanism operates in 3 calculated steps. Step 1. The trigger. Harry has reportedly resisted multiple arrangements that would see him stay privately with King Charles at secure estates like Sandringham or Balmoral. Think about that for a moment. These are some of the most fortified private residences on the planet, guarded by elite units of the British Army and the Metropolitan Police. If Harry truly cared about safety, there is no safer place on earth than behind the gates of a royal estate. Yet, Harry says no. His reason? A supposed lack of privacy. To the palace, this is a transparent smokescreen. One high-level aide reportedly remarked during a briefing, "He doesn't want to be safe. He wants to be invisible to the King's supervision while remaining visible to his own camera crews." Step 2. The condition. Harry isn't just asking for protection. He is demanding an unprecedented legal exception. According to legal records surfacing from the High Court in London, the Duke is pushing for a private, armed security detail, a concept that is fundamentally illegal for private citizens in the United Kingdom. He wants a private army that can carry firearms on British soil, independent of the Home Office's command. He is essentially asking the British government to tear up the rulebook for his personal convenience. Step 3. The consequence. This is where the emotional blackmail turns into a cold, geopolitical negotiation. Because the Home Office and RAVEC have stood their ground, citing the law, Harry has triggered the grandchild embargo. Insiders believe Harry is effectively telling a dying king, if you don't overrule the government and give me the armed guards I want, you will never hold Archie and Lilibet again. It is a weaponization of family ties that has left the monarchy reeling. By refusing to bring the children under the existing, perfectly adequate royal security arrangements, the Sussexes are turning a grandfather's natural longing into a high-stakes bargaining chip. The authority behind these claims is undeniable. We are looking at official filings from the High Court and internal memos from the Home Office that describe Harry's demands as unworkable and legally problematic. And the clock is ticking. April 15th, 2026 is the hard deadline. That is the final date for the security logistics to be finalized for the Trooping the Colour ceremony in June. If no agreement is reached by then, the grandchild embargo becomes permanent for the summer. As the palace prepares its response, a much deeper question remains. Why is Harry so desperate for an independent security team that operates outside the king's bubble? What is he planning to do, or who is he planning to meet, that requires total secrecy from his own family? The answer lies buried in a pattern of behavior that goes back to the final, painful months of Queen Elizabeth II. And as we are about to see, the true cost of this drama was paid by a woman who defined duty until her very last breath. You have to wonder, if they did this to the Queen, what is stopping them from doing it to a king fighting for his life? Every minute of this investigation reveals a plot so twisted, it makes fiction look tame. It was never a coincidence. It was a countdown. To understand the sheer magnitude of this betrayal, we have to look at the timeline, the cold, hard dates that prove this wasn't a sudden emotional outburst, but a calculated strategy years in the making. We begin in September 2024. Montecito. While the public was focused on their latest media ventures, Prince Harry was quietly laying the financial foundation for this very war. Records indicate he signed a private security consulting contract worth a staggering $5 million. At the time, analysts wondered why a private citizen needed such a massive war chest for protection. We now know the answer. He was preparing to fund a legal and PR offensive against his own father's government. Flash forward to February 2026, London. The mood inside the palace shifted from cautious optimism to grave concern. King Charles III publicly announced he was entering a new, more aggressive phase of cancer treatment. This was the moment the king was at his most physically vulnerable. Instead of a gesture of peace, the response from California was a chilling silence, a silence that lasted until March 28, 2026. On that Sunday morning, a carefully timed leak appeared in the Sunday Times. The headline painted a picture of a grieving son who desperately wants to reconcile, but is too terrified for his family's safety. Royal insiders saw right through it. They recognized it as a classic PR move, the softening of the ground. By painting himself as the victim in the press first, Harry was setting the stage for the blow he was about to deliver in private. That blow landed on April 1st, 2026. At exactly 3:14 a.m., the ultimatum we've been discussing arrived in room 1844 at Buckingham Palace. While the king was undergoing treatment, Harry officially tied the presence of his children to the granting of armed guards. One palace source, who witnessed the fallout, reportedly described the king's reaction as a silent, heartbreaking agony. The king reportedly whispered to an aide, "Is my love for my grandchildren now a matter for the Home Office to decide?" By the next day, April 2nd, 2026, the atmosphere at Kensington Palace had turned to ice. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, convened an emergency summit with his own team of elite royal lawyers. This wasn't a family meeting, it was a council of war. William, reportedly acting as the steel spine of the monarchy, was overheard telling his legal counsel, "This is no longer a sibling rivalry. This is a direct assault on the Crown's sovereignty during a time of national crisis. We are moving to total isolation. And that brings us to today, April 3rd, 2026. As the sun rose over London this morning, a senior source within the Home Office officially confirmed the government's stance. The quote was short, "Dut what," and final, "There will be no exceptions for those who choose to live outside the royal fold. The law is the law. The trap Harry set has snapped shut, but not on the king. It has snapped shut on Harry himself. By trying to leverage his father's illness, he has forced the Home Office to dig in their heels and forced his brother to lock the gates. But as the palace prepares its final counter-offensive, we have to ask, what was the secret that the late Queen Elizabeth II took to her grave regarding this very same tactic? Because as it turns out, Harry and Meghan have used this nuclear option before, and the hidden documents from 2022 reveal exactly why the king is now being so resolute. The truth about the naming of a little girl named Lilibet is where the mask truly begins to slip. To understand why King Charles III is standing his ground with such iron resolve today, we must look at a private heartbreak that the world was never meant to see. We have to go back to the final stoic days of Queen Elizabeth II. The public saw a monarch of 96 years waving from the balcony with a forced smile. What they didn't see was a grandmother being tormented by what royal author Hugo Vickers calls unnecessary pain. Inside the small private bedroom at Balmoral Castle in September 2022, a chilling scene unfolded. Forensic-level details from palace insiders reveal that the Queen's personal iPad, found near her bedside, contained a trail of final emails that paint a devastating picture. The Queen was not just fighting bone marrow cancer, she was fighting an emotional war. The center of that war was the naming of a little girl called Lilibet. For 70 years, Lilibet was the Queen's most sacred, private childhood nickname. It was a name used only by her husband, Prince Philip, her parents, and her sister Margaret. It was the one thing she had left that belonged to the woman, not the monarch. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced they had named their daughter Lilibet, they publicly claimed they had the Queen's blessing. However, an unpublished memoir from a high-ranking courtier tells a far more sinister story. According to this record, Harry didn't ask for permission. He issued a notification. He called the Queen to tell her it was a fait accompli. Before she could even process the shock, the Sussex PR machine had already briefed the global media. The Queen felt trapped. If she denied giving permission, she would look like a cruel great-grandmother attacking a newborn baby. If she stayed silent, she was complicit in the theft of her own identity. Sources close to the late Queen say she was as angry as they had ever seen her. This is the psychological context that King Charles is operating in today. On April 3rd, 2026, he watched his mother, a woman of iron will, reduced to tears by these relentless media hand grenades during her dying months. He remembers the stress, the sleepless nights, and the way the Sussex's interview with Oprah Winfrey was broadcast, while Prince Philip was literally on his deathbed. To King Charles, the current security ultimatum from Montecito is not a new dispute. It is the same nuclear option used against his mother. He sees a son who is willing to use the most vulnerable moments, a death, a funeral, a cancer diagnosis, as leverage to get what he wants. Charles has reached a realization that has changed the course of the monarchy. This is the breaking point of trust. The king now understands the long-term danger of giving in. If he bypasses the RAVEC committee to grant Harry elite armed guards today, he sets a catastrophic precedent. He knows that if he pays for bodyguards now, the demands will only escalate. Tomorrow, it will be a demand for a massive increase in financial inheritance or a share of the sovereign's private trust. Charles is no longer just a father trying to heal a rift. He is a sovereign protecting the crown from what palace insiders are now calling emotional terrorism. He has decided that he would rather have his arms remain empty when it comes to the grandchildren in California than allow the memory of his mother to be betrayed by the same tactics. But while the king battles this grief, his eldest son has already moved past grief into a state of total, clinical ice out. Prince William has a different plan for the future, one that involves a permanent no-fly zone for the Sussexes. And as we move into the reality of the Kensington Palace summit, we see that the gates aren't just closed, they are being welded shut. If King Charles is the heartbeat of the monarchy, Prince William is its steel spine. And as of April 3rd, 2026, that spine is locked in a position of total clinical defiance. To understand the future of the British royal family, you must understand one thing. The Prince of Wales is done. He isn't just angry, he has entered a state of permanent ice out. While the king might still view Harry through the lens of a grieving father, William views his brother through the lens of a protector of the realm. And right now, he sees Harry as the ultimate threat to the survival of the House of Windsor. The current security blackmail from Montecito has been the final straw for the heir to the throne. Behind the ancient stone walls of Kensington Palace, William has reportedly established what insiders are calling an information no-fly zone. This is a total, unilateral blackout. No details about the king's medical charts, no updates on upcoming state visits, and certainly no personal family news are allowed to reach California. William has effectively cut the communication lines, ensuring that Harry can no longer use insider knowledge as currency for his next media deal. On the morning of April 3rd, 2026, a symbolic but devastating act took place that signals the end of an era. In the West Corridor of Buckingham Palace, a hallway frequented by visiting dignitaries and high-level staff, William reportedly issued a direct order. Every single photograph featuring Prince Harry was to be removed from the public-facing sills and waiting rooms. It was a visual purge, a clear message to the household staff and the world that the Duke of Sussex is no longer part of the official narrative. One aide was overheard saying, "It's as if he's been airbrushed out of history. The Prince of Wales doesn't want a single reminder of the betrayal in his sight." But William's counterstrike goes far deeper than a few removed photographs. He is currently working with elite royal lawyers to explore a royal gag order. This is a complex legal mechanism being designed to prevent the Sussexes from using any imagery or mentions of the king's grandchildren, including Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, in any future commercial projects. William is reportedly determined to ensure that his children are never used as B-roll for a Netflix docuseries or mentioned in a sequel to Spare. He is protecting the next generation from the Montecito circus by building a legal fortress around them. To William, Harry's demand for taxpayer-funded security is a farce. He knows that Harry was offered the ultimate safety of the royal fold, and he threw it away for a paycheck. There is a successor's wrath brewing here. William sees Harry as unexploded ordnance, unpredictable, dangerous, and always looking for the next payout. By allowing Harry to use Archie and Lilibet as leverage now, William believes it sets a dangerous precedent. His stance is simple. The Sussexes made their bed in California. Now they must sleep in it without the British police standing guard. For the first time in their lives, the silence between the brothers is absolute. No phone calls, no encrypted messages, no middlemen. Harry is now being treated as a titled civilian rather than a member of the family. The gates are not just locked, they are being welded shut. But as William prepares for his role as the future king, a dark question hangs over the palace. What happens when the silence is finally broken? Because, as we are about to see, the final confrontation isn't coming from a courtroom or a PR briefing. It's coming from a secret realization the palace has just made. One that changes everything we thought we knew about the security war. There is one card left to play, and it's the most dangerous one of all. The security war was never really about bodyguards or bulletproof glass. It was the final, desperate gambit of a couple realizing that the world they tried to build in California is built on shifting sands. By using Archie and Lilibet as leverage against a king fighting for his life, Harry and Meghan haven't just crossed a line, they have burned the very ground they stood on. As we stand here on April 3rd, 2026, three distinct scenarios are now emerging from the fog of this royal conflict. The first, and most devastating, is the constitutional crisis. Imagine May 2026. Prince Harry officially files a lawsuit against the King's government while his father is in the middle of an intensive medical cycle. It would be a legal spectacle unlike anything seen in 1,000 years, a son suing his own father's administration during a time of national vulnerability. This is the nuclear option, and it would effectively end Harry's relationship with the British public forever. The second scenario is the cold compromise. A back-channel agreement is reached where Harry travels to London alone for the summer events, while Meghan and the children remain in Montecito. On the surface, it looks like a truce. In reality, it is the final severing of the generational bond. Archie and Lilibet would become ghost royals, strangers to their grandfather and their heritage. It is a slow, quiet death of a family's legacy. However, the third and most likely kitsch ban, the one the palace is currently betting on, is the strategy of total silence. The King and Prince William are reportedly choosing not to negotiate with emotional terrorists. By simply ignoring the ultimatum, the palace ensures that Harry misses the April 15th deadline for summer logistics. He loses his security, he loses his invite, and he loses his relevance. Public outrage in the United Kingdom is already reaching a boiling point. Insiders predict that if Harry persists, he won't be able to step foot on British soil for at least 5 years, without facing a PR catastrophe he cannot recover from. Why is this third scenario the most realistic? Because of one name: Prince William. As of this year, William has taken full control of the Duchy of Cornwall. This is not just a title, it is a billion-dollar engine of financial power. The Duchy is the only source of the private family wealth that Harry desperately hopes to access in the future. William has the keys to the kingdom, and he has made it clear that loyalty is the price of admission. Without the King's blessing and William's signature, the Sussexes are financially and socially adrift. The era of Sussex drama is reaching its endgame. The palace gates are closed, not out of malice, but out of necessity. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and the House of Windsor has decided it would rather stand alone than fall with those who seek to dismantle it. But as this chapter closes, another, much darker one is opening. Hidden inside the desk of the King's private secretary lies a file that has never been leaked to the press. It is marked Top Secret, Dossier 2022-S. This document contains the real, chilling reason why Meghan Markle has been told she will never, under any circumstances, be allowed to return to the United Kingdom, not even for a state funeral. The truth involves a recorded phone call at Clarence House that changed the King's perception of his daughter-in-law forever. We want to hear from you. Is Prince Harry right to demand state-funded security for his family? Or is using his children as leverage the ultimate betrayal of a sick king? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you found this investigation insightful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe with all notifications turned on. You won't want to miss our exclusive breakdown of the 2022 S file coming to you in our next deep dive tomorrow. Thank you.